Previously on You Can Beat Video Games. The Empire was down, but not out. Kefka was defeated at the Battle of Narsh, and for now the frozen Esper was safe. Or was it? Terra transformed and flew away to the hostile city of Zozo. Figaro Castle carried our party to Collingen, where Locke came face to face with his lost love Rachel, trapped in suspended animation under an old man's house. The Esper Ramu told us of other Espers trapped in the Empire's Magitech research facility. Would need an airship to get there, and to get one, we orchestrated an elaborate plot that saw Celis perform an opera and a battle with the octopus Ultros on stage. After all of that, we were able to hustle the notorious gambler Setzer Gabbiani with a double-sided coin, and we were off to Vector. Once we'd liberated the captured Espers, Kefka tried to crash the party, but Celis summoned magic from deep within herself to teleport them all away. After narrowly escaping Vector in a minecart, we regrouped in Zozo, where we learned that Terra was the child of Madonna, a human, and Maduin, an Esper. To win this war, we'll need the support of the Espers, and perhaps Terra can bring them on board. To reach the sealed gate that leads to the Esper world, we'll have to traverse a treacherous lava-filled cave. Today, on You Can Beat Video Games. If you're new to the channel, we're doing deep dives on retro video games and giving you the professional strategies that can be used by the casual gamer. Please make sure to subscribe and check out youcanbeatvideogames.com for episode lists, news, and official You Can Beat Video Games merchandise. And please join our Patreon for access to an exclusive Discord community and a chance to vote on future episodes. Let's get started. All right, Final Fantasy VI, Part 3. Before we get back into the story, I want to show you a very powerful secret called the Psycho Cyan glitch. We'll need a character that can cast the Imp spell to be able to do this, and Cyan needs to know Sword Tech level 2. We're going to reduce Cyan's health down so that we can kill him in a single hit, and then we're going to let our character's ATB gauges fill up. Once Cyan uses his Sword Tech level 2, quickly turn him into an imp before he can counter any attacks. Remember, Sword Tech level 2 is retort, and it makes a counter attack if he gets hit. Then we'll have Sabin kill him with a single shot after he was turned into an imp, and because he hasn't countered yet, whenever Locke revives him with a Phoenix down, he's going to start attacking, and he won't stop until every enemy is dead. The Cyan going psycho, this imp is going crazy. I'm hitting little enemies, just everyone in front of me. And with a few more blood-soaked slashes, Cyan will clear out every enemy here, leaving no trace behind. You can do this pretty much wherever you want to in the game, and you can use it to defeat some very difficult bosses. Just don't use it against any enemies that Cyan can't actually damage, or you could get stuck in the loop. This guy is a boss, so he has a lot of health, and Cyan's only hitting for around 100 damage each swing, but you can see the boss had no chance to retaliate once the trick started. So after a few moments, the battle is won. Pretty cool, right? Well, now that we've seen that trick, let's get back to the story and return to the Sealed Gate Cave. Right away we've hit a battle and we have 3 Lich enemies, which are undead, but surprisingly, these guys absorb fire magic, so don't try any of your fire-based techniques against these. They look awfully flammable to me, but your holy type attacks like Sabin's Aura Bolt are a much better bet. These guys are vulnerable to curative magic, so you can use cure spells, you could use life, you could use a Phoenix Down or a Revivify. Any of that stuff would work great against a Lich. On their first turn, a Lich can use an attack that could inflict the Confusion status on one of your characters, so that's probably the most dangerous thing they can do. There's a 1 in 3 chance of that happening on each of the monster's first attacks. We need to stay on top of which characters are going to level up next so that we can make sure they are equipped with the appropriate Espers so that they'll get a good bonus when they do level up. You want to make sure that your characters are getting a level up bonus from an Esper every time they level up. Over here on the right side we'll find the Assassin, which is a weapon that can instantly kill enemies, and I don't recommend equipping it because it is not good against the undead that you'll meet here in the Sealed Gate Cave. However, the Tempest, which is a knife, and that's just what they call katanas in this game, but that is a great new weapon for Cyan, so make sure to equip him with that. Sometimes it will use the Wind Slash ability, which will hit all enemies with wind type damage. Here in Basement 2 we face a bridge puzzle. The bridges switch at regular intervals, and we want to make sure that we're standing on safe spaces whenever they do switch, so that you don't fall into the lava, which will do you some damage and send you back to the beginning of the room. We also have to deal with some random monster encounters in here, and this time we're facing a Zombone and 2 Ings. You can see how Cyan's Tempest Blade works. He just used the Wind Slash ability. Interestingly, the Wind Slash ability replaces his entire attack there, but he had the Genji glove on, so he still got a second swing with his other weapon. This Zombone is not especially threatening. It's the only enemy here in the Sealed Gate Cave that you can effectively use fire magic against, and it's also undead, so it's weak against your typical holy type magics. If it does survive to its 4th turn, it could zombify one of your characters, but it typically does not last that long. Back here to the bridge puzzle, we're going to work our way over to the left and just be holding left whenever the bridges switch, and that will get you to the Coin Toss relic, which is a special relic that Setzer can use, and it will change his slots ability to GP Rain, which will throw a bunch of our money at the enemies. It's pretty good if you have a lot of cash in reserve, and it also keys off of Setzer's level, so it's not particularly good right now, but it could be useful later on. Basement 3 is an enormous cavern, and this is going to make up the bulk of the dungeon. You'll also only face 2 different types of enemies in this room. It's kind of strange that they made up several other types of enemies, but only put them in the first couple rooms of the dungeon. And then we only have these Ings or Zombones to meet here in Basement 3. Let's talk about Ings. Ings are these purple monsters, and one good thing about them is that Locke can steal amulets from them if you're especially lucky. Like most other enemies here in this dungeon, they are undead, but they absorb fire, so don't use fire, but do use holy type magics, and curing can also work. The real danger with these guys is an ability that they can use every other turn, which is called Life Shaver. Life Shaver is an earth-based attack, and it deals a ton of damage. If you're being especially cautious, Life Shaver is an earth-based spell, so the float magic that Stray can teach protects against it. A lone Ing has a chance to use a darkness inflicting attack as a counter, but we all know that darkness doesn't really do anything in this version of the game, so it's nothing to be worried about. Cyan, Terra, and Sabin all leveled up after that battle, and we had them equipped with the appropriate Espers. Cyan had Bismarck to increase his vigor, while Sabin and Terra had Modouin and Zone Seek to increase their magic power. Zone Seek is more powerful than Modouin, but we only have one Zone Seek right now. Later on in the game, we'll get another Esper that increases magic power with a +2 whenever you level up, but we won't find that one until later. For now, we'll switch Zone Seek over to Locke because he's the next character to level up, and we'll be on our way. Down here we can grab an Ether, which could come in handy in a pinch at some point whenever we need to restore some magic points. And here we have 3 Ings again, except this time we have them trapped in a pincer attack. Remember that when you're attacking monsters in this sort of configuration, not only do we start the battle with full ATB meters so that we get to go first, but if you attack the back of a monster, you'll deal more damage, so you want to do that whenever possible. If you have spellcasters that normally would use fire magic, you'll want to switch them over to using healing magic against these guys, and you can see that Terra used a cure spell to deal a decent amount of damage, but something like Aura Bolt, that's going to do heavy damage against these guys, and should be able to defeat an Ing in a single shot. We ultimately need to get to the far right side of this large cavern, but to get there from here, we actually need to head up and to the left. We have to go underneath an overpass here, and before we can do that, we are once again fighting a Zombone and 2 Ings. We can have Terra cast fire magic on the Zombone here, but it is a bit of a risk. Sabin's Aura Bolt will hit a random target, and if he were to have killed the Zombone, Terra's fire magic would have fallen on one of the Ings, and that could have backfired. Normally we'd just have Locke use capture against the enemies so we can incidentally steal items, but we're having him use his normal fight command against the Ing enemies because they are floating, and his Hawkeye weapon can deal extra damage to floating enemies, but not when he's capturing. Cyan's Tempest Katana just procced its special wind attack again, and with the second slice from his other weapon, Cyan finishes the fight. We learned a lot of spells after that one. We may need to switch up some Espers pretty soon, but for now we're going to head underneath this overpass and continue to the right. You'll see a platform up above, but you can just ignore it. Instead we want to head down here, and it's the 2 Ings and a Zombone again. We've seen these guys before, so we know what to do, and there you can see the Hawkeye weapon getting its extra damage, so that's why we're using fight instead of capture. Now, fighting can deal extra damage, but you may still want to try to capture the Ings so that you'll have a chance to get that rare amulet. The amulet is a relic that can prevent the zombie status, so we will want to carry a few of those for characters that we don't have a ribbon equipped to, for areas where many enemies could inflict zombie. And it looks like Locke leveled up as we expected, so we can take a look at his status. 42 vigor and 34 magic power, not bad. And we can take a look at our other characters as well. We'll want to switch him to a different Esper, and we're going to give him Phantom right now. That will give him the ability to cast the Vanish spell, and if we want to use the Vanish Doom combo, we'll need to start teaching that spell to a few of our characters. From here we'll head up this slope and we're going to cross this wooden bridge, but first we have to face 3 Ings, and we got back attacked this time. That'll make things a little bit more interesting. We usually defeat these Ings before they get their second turn, but whenever they get a second turn, that's when they have the chance to use Life Shaver against us, and that's their most powerful attack. Now that we're in back attack, we are much more vulnerable to a Life Shaver. So, oh, here it is. Let's see who they use it on. Locke. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. Life Shaver can deal a decent amount of damage, and it heals the Ing, so it can be especially devastating if all 3 of the enemies would happen to use Life Shaver all in the same turn. It's unlikely to happen, but it could. And it's worth noting that if you had Gao on your team, many of the rages he uses give him incidental float magic, which could protect him here. Now you'll see that because this Ing was left alone, it tried to counter with Glare, although it missed. Glare would just inflict darkness, so it's not anything you need to be terribly concerned about. Several of our characters leveled up, and we learned some spells, so we're doing pretty good in here. Cyan is up to 44 Vigor because of the +2 he got from the Bismarck Esper, and that's going to start really showing up in his damage output, especially considering we have him equipped with 2 weapons, but he's not going to be able to learn too many more spells from Bismarck, so we're going to shuffle around some of the Espers while we get other characters to level up with their bonuses. We're going to put Sabin on Zone Seek so that he can get more magic power to fuel his special blitzes, and you want to grab that switch in the middle of the bridge. It'll drop you down here to the bottom, but now we'll be able to go across this small bridge, and inside that chest we'll be able to get a Genji glove after we deal with these 2 Zombones. Zombones look fairly menacing, and they have a good amount of hit points, but I would take 2 Zombones over 3 Ings any day of the week. These guys are vulnerable to fire, so Sabin's Fire Dance works great here. For the most part, all Zombones do is attack. For their first 3 turns, they have a 2 out of 3 chance of attacking and a 1 in 3 chance of just doing nothing. It's not until their 4th turn when they have a 2 out of 3 chance of turning one of your characters into a zombie that they become a problem, and you should be able to defeat the Zombones long before they ever get that opportunity. So make sure to grab an extra Genji glove. You'll always be happy to have more of those, and then we're going to head back down to the right. This time we have the Zombone and the 2 Ings in a pincer attack, and you want to prioritize the 2 Ings whenever you see this formation. Their Life Shaver attack is pretty annoying, and you should be able to get rid of them quickly enough so that they won't be able to do it. Then you can take care of the Zombone, and you should have enough time to defeat it before it can turn one of your characters into a zombie. Now, if this formation of monsters were to get you in a back attack, maybe the Zombone could progress to its 4th turn, so you may want to use slightly more powerful magic and attacks. Like you might want to try to Cure 2 all of the enemies. That's something you could do. Sabin leveled up after that fight, and we can see that his magic power is now up to 32. He's built more for physical attacks, but many of the blitzes that we use key off of his magic power, so it makes sense to try to raise that up. Cyan just leveled up, so we'll switch him over to an Esper that will help him learn some magic spells. The Shoat Esper can teach Doom magic, and that's the second part of the Vanish Doom combination, so if you're thinking about using that, you'll need to train one of your characters using Shoat. Shoat also teaches Doom at a very slow rate, so if you want to learn that spell, you should start early. Touch the switch on the left to open up a hidden door, and inside we'll find a save room. The save room is safe, there are no monster encounters here, so you can freely walk over and pick up the tent on the right side, and then you may want to use it to restore your health before saving the game. It's nice that the game just gives you a tent here, in case you forgot to bring one yourself. Once you're done in the save room, you may be tempted to touch this switch on the right, but it will trigger a battle with a very dangerous ninja. We'll encounter ninja in their natural habitat on the floating continent, but for now, consider this guy to be armed and extremely dangerous. On a ninja's turn, it has a 2 out of 3 chance of using some sort of elemental scroll against your party, and that damage can add up fast. They are weak against holy attacks, so Sabin's Aura Bolt is extremely effective. Upon his defeat, the ninja gives us a vague clue about items that are buried under the ground, and we will see what he's talking about in just a moment. For now, we're going to head over here to the right, but first we'll have to face off against 3 more Ings. We certainly know how to defeat these enemies using this party configuration, but what if you had some different characters in your team? The Ings are weak against water magic, so there are actually several water-based rages that Gao could take advantage of, and Shadow can throw water edges. These guys also don't seem to be resistant to confusion, so Edgar's Noise Blaster might be good, although you might want to just have Edgar use the drill against them to keep up the damage. And we got Life Shavered, and for quite a bit of damage that time, so that's a little bit obnoxious, but we should be able to finish this battle quite quickly as soon as Cyan gets his turn. And that's it. We win again. And we got 2 magic points, but nobody leveled up. Locke is probably very close to leveling up, so we'll pass the Zone Seek Esper to him. There's a pattern right now of how our characters are leveling up. It seems that Terra, Sabin, and Cyan all level up at about the same time, and then Locke follows. And whenever we flip this switch, we will see the grand stairway that the ninja just mentioned to us. And in this area, if you look around, you can find some stuff hidden under the ground. Over here, we found an Invis Edge, but many of the things that we seem to find are actually lies. That wasn't a remedy at all, it was a soft potion. Let's see which monsters interrupted our treasure hunt this time. It's the 2 Zombones. So we're going to have Sabin use his Fire Dance Blitz. We can try to capture using Locke, and we actually got Phoenix down, so that's kind of nice. We can have Terra use fire magic herself, and this will probably finish the battle, and if it didn't, Cyan's attack would have done it. Locke leveled up just as we expected, and he got that bonus from the Zone Seek Esper, so we can check that out. You can see 36 magic power now, very nice. And it looks like Terra is very close to leveling up, so we better switch some Espers around. Remember, you always want to have the best Espers equipped when you level up. So we have Zone Seek for Terra, and we're going to want to move Bismarck over to Cyan so that he can get that Vigor increase. You don't want to take Vigor up any higher than 128, you won't get any further bonuses beyond that. But we're pretty far off. We'll get an ether from the chest, and up here, don't get too excited, it's not actually 2,000 gold pieces, it was 293 gold pieces. Somebody apparently can't count. Well, it looks like another pair of Zombones is just begging for us to incinerate them using Sabin's Fire Dance. We can have Terra use her fire magic, and everyone else can just bring the beat down, and it will not be long before these 2 big purple monsters are reduced to a pile of ashes. That ought to be enough experience points to level up Terra, and it looks like Cyan also leveled up, in addition to learning a ton of spells. Not bad. We'll take a look at their statuses, and Cyan has 46 Vigor now, while Terra has 50 magic power. That is very good. We'll shuffle around the Espers once again. It is much more important that the characters have the appropriate Espers equipped whenever they level up than it is for them to be learning more spells. You can learn the spells at any time, but you have a limited amount of times that you can level up in this game. Once you reach level 99, that's it. And each level is a bit harder to reach than the previous one, so make those levels count. Up here we'll find a water edge, which is labeled as a water skein, but at least that one's not a total lie. And then you want to head up through this dark area, where we've encountered yet another set of 2 Ings and a Zombone. We've only leveled up a few times here in the Sealed Gate Cave, but because we've been leveling up with Espers, it's going to start making a big difference. When Terra cast her Cure spell before, it only dealt about 250 damage, but now you see that it deals over 300. That's quite a bit more. When you level up without Espers, you still increase a damage multiplier that will make you deal more damage in combat, but whenever you're leveling up your stats at the same time, those increases become much more significant. Your characters equipped with the Zone Seek Esper like Sabin here will incidentally learn some very useful spells. Osmose and Rasp are two spells we can use to attack an enemy's magic points, which doesn't sound very exciting, but is surprisingly good against certain bosses. Once you snag the elixir from the chest, you want to head over here to the right, but avoid those pressure plates. Touching those pressure plates will complicate things here, and it'll be much easier if we don't press them. First we'll have to face 3 Ings, and Cyan's Tempest Katana is going to make things quite a bit easier. Also, Locke got lucky with the Hawkeye and dealt the additional damage, so these monsters are going down fast. One downside to using Cure Magic against undead monsters is if the enemy that you targeted dies before your spell resolves, the spell will fail instead of just targeting another enemy. You can circumvent this by targeting enemies as a group, but most spells deal less damage to each target when they are targeting multiple enemies, so it's not always an easy decision. We can see that Sabin's magic power is now up to 34, strengthening his Aura Bolt and Fire Dance blitzes, as well as some blitzes that we don't have yet. Now that they're leveled up, we'll switch around a few Espers and we'll head up here to this chest which contains a switch. If you flick the switch, then we'll head down here and you can see why we wanted to avoid that pressure plate. You'd have to go all the way around if you pressed it. We got a bit lucky and hit the 2 Zombones again. I would say that this is the easiest monster encounter in this cavern. It's so much easier to deal with these enemies by just using the Fire Dance, which can hit both of them at the same time for big damage. And really, the Fire Dance is almost strong enough to clear both Zombones at the same time. It won't be too long before Sabin will be that powerful. We do have Sabin equipped with Earring Relics, which increase his magic power, so if your Sabin has similar stats and is not dealing as much damage, that's probably why. The path down here leads to a treasure room, but we'll need to clear out these enemies first. We just need to take out the Ings first. They are the more threatening of the 2 targets. We can use Curative Magic, we can use Aura Bolt, we can just use melee attacks. And once those guys are out of the way, we'll focus on the Zombone, which is the easier of the 2 enemies to deal with. If it does get to its 4th turn, it could try to turn one of our characters into a zombie, which would be annoying, but it's just not likely to happen. And once again, Sabin's Fire Dance clears out the last enemy on the screen, and we will be able to move on with our lives. You see that there's a pressure switch over on top of a plateau to the left. That's where we're headed to next. But we'll check some of our characters' experience points first. Both Terra and Cyan need fewer than 500 experience points to level up, and Locke is pretty close to 500, and since we've been getting more than 500 from all of the monster encounters we've met here in the cave, it's safe to say that we need to equip our Espers now. We hit the pressure switch opening up the treasure room, and there are monster encounters in here, so be careful as you walk around. So far we found an Ether and a Magicite, and a Magicite, that's just a consumable item that will summon a random Esper when you use it. Those are fun to use, but I wouldn't say they are especially useful. Here we have the 2 Zombones. We know what to do. Light them up with fire. Fire Dance, Fire Magic, fire whatever you got. Those guys are going down. Cyan and Terra both leveled up as we expected, and Locke is now very close to leveling. So we'll see that Terra now has 52 magic power. Sabin, it'll be a while for him to level up. And Cyan, now he's up to 48 vigor. Modoin only gives +1 magic power when you level up, so we will give the superior Zone Seek to Locke so that he can enjoy a +2 instead. Once we're done changing around Espers, in this room we're going to find the most exciting item here in the sealed gate cave, the Atma weapon. The Atma weapon is essentially a lightsaber, and it ignores defense, and it sort of levels up with our characters. The Atma weapon deals more damage when the wielder is at full HP, and whenever you use the optimum command from the equip menu, it will never choose the Atma weapon, so you'll need to manually equip it. Our characters are a bit too low level to effectively wield the Atma weapon right now, but it's definitely something we'll use later, so make sure to pick it up. Here we have 3 more Ings. We weren't able to steal that time, but we are starting to use the capture command again because our characters are getting more powerful, so we don't need Locke to use his full strength to defeat these monsters anymore. Sabin's Aura Bolt is powerful enough to kill one of these things almost twice over now, so anytime he connects with that, that's going to work. Remember, if you're not good at doing the Hadouken maneuver to make an Aura Bolt, you can just press down, down, left. That also works. And there's the Aura Bolt. That will finish the fight. We win again. As expected, Locke leveled up this time. We also got a Revivify, which would be nice if a Zombone happened to be successful with its zombie attack. And we can switch off the Zone Seek Esper now that Locke has leveled, and we'll give him back Phantom. He's up to magic power 38, which is not bad. Because Locke is so naturally fast, I like to build him as a more balanced character with a good amount of vigor and magic power. It may make sense to build him as a melee attacker with a strong focus in that, but allowing him to be good at using some magic is not the worst. Flicking the switch in this chest is not really what you want to do. It will disable the bridge up here, so you can just ignore it. And instead, we just want to continue up and to the right. Because we were messing around with that switch in the treasure chest, we've hit another random monster encounter, but we got them in the pincer attack, so they'll be lucky to get off more than an attack or two. And the 2 wings are down, and oh no, the Zombone hit Terra for a whole 66 damage. Yeah, I think we're going to be fine. In fact, once Sabin gets off this Aura Bolt, that's going to seal the deal. It's probably enough damage to finish off the Zombone on its own. And with that, Cyan learned Bio, Sabin learned Cure 2. We're learning all kinds of good magic. We'll have Sabin cure the party. It's always better to cure the party between battles than in battle, and we are so close to the end now. Up here we'll grab a piece of Magicite, and then we'll head down here to the right. Could this be our final test before we finally get out of the Basement 3 cavern? Well, we'll attack the 2 wings, and then we'll focus our remaining attacks on the Zombone. Hopefully we won't get hit by any life shavers. That's the worst thing that can happen here, but our characters are pretty powerful, so even if both Ings were to use a life shaver, we'll still probably win this one. And we'll have Cyan attack the Zombone because we're feeling a little bit confident here, and well, maybe we got a bit too overconfident because there's the life shaver. And that dealt some pretty significant damage to Sabin and definitely set us back an entire attack on that Ing. But here comes an Aura Bolt that corrects our course, and now it's not going to take much to finish the battle. We can use our fire attacks now because the Zombone is weak against them while the Ings were going to absorb them. And there's some fire. 1100 damage, not bad. If we're being honest, we probably could have done that battle a little bit better, but we're no worse for wear. We'll heal up the team, and then head down through the door labeled F on the map. And that brings us to the final room before the gate. If we can just make it through here, we'll be through. And that's it. We've done it. We've cleared the sealed gate cave. Well, there it is. The door that leads to the Esper world. First of all, I love the aesthetic here. With the dark swirling clouds and the flashing lightning, it is very cool. But when the Esper elders sealed up this gate, it certainly seemed permanent. There were other Espers trapped over on our side, and they never were able to open the gate. Or maybe they just never tried? Hey, do you guys smell Fago? Yeah, it appears that we've been followed by a wicked clown. That's Kefka, all right. And we meet him here on the bridge to the sealed gate. You're not gonna get away with this, Kefka. There's no way we'll let you get to those Espers. But it appears that we've been double-crossed. We were set up from the very beginning. The Emperor and Kefka, they let Terra escape. They wanted her to join the Returners because they knew that she would eventually come back here and she would open the gate for them. At this point, we're supposed to keep Kefka busy so that we can buy time for Terra, but we should actually be running back to Terra and telling her to not open the gate. Don't do it. Kefka just revealed their evil plot. This is what they wanted. Well, it's too late now. With a chromatic flash of color, Terra morphs into an Esper, and the doors swing open. What emerges from those doors? Well, it's a storm of Espers. Kefka may have wanted us to open the sealed gate, but he's about to get a little bit more than he bargained for. And as the Espers begin to emerge from the gate, everyone hits the deck. With a flash of frightful energy, the Espers start appearing. We see Bahamut, Zone Seek, Fenrir, and many more. And with that, Kefka is whisked away. And Terra returns. Terra, what have we done? With the gate open, the Emperor can get to the other Espers now. But as if reading our minds, the gate suddenly swings shut, and to seal it further, rocks fall from the sky and arrange themselves neatly in a skull-shaped pattern in front of the door. Well, I'm not sure how secure that is, but it looks like it'll keep back the Emperor for now. But what about all of those Espers that just came rushing into our world? Well, we'll need some wings to follow them, so we'll need to head back to our airship. After everything fades to black, we reappear in the sealed gate cave, and if you can't stand to see another Ing or Zombone, you could use a warp stone or a warp spell to get out of here. Otherwise, there's a magical exit that appears in the lower left corner of that map, so you can easily get out that way. Before we go, there are a couple of enemy types that we didn't see, and they appear here in this first room of the cave. And there they are right now, the Apparite and the Colosite. These two enemies are immune to fire magic, so you don't want to use your fire on them, just like almost all the other enemy types here in the sealed gate cave. The Apparites have a 33% chance to counter anything you throw at them with an attack that can turn your characters into an imp, which is a little bit annoying. And you want to make sure that you don't leave the Colosite for last, because if it's the last enemy on the screen, it could do an earthquake attack magnitude 8 when it dies. So those are my notes on those enemy types. If you encounter them, that's what you need to know. And with that, let's head back into the Imperial base. There's a big room full of treasure here in the Imperial base, but right now it's locked up tight, so we'll need to come back here a bit later. For now though, there are no enemy soldiers lurking around, so just head over here to the left, where we'll meet up with Edgar, who asks us what happened. But I bet Edgar could have guessed what happened, because he saw those Espers flying off towards the capital city of Vector, and that's where we need to go next. Back up in the Blackjack, we seem to have caught up with the Espers, because once we get close to the city of Vector, Terra begins to sense their presence. Locke asks Terra what's wrong. What's wrong, Locke? We're flying an airship into a swarm of angry Espers. That's what's wrong. And then, those Espers manifest. Setzer wonders what that was, but he needs to get down. Locke quickly jumps on top of him to keep him safe. Carbuncle floats by, and so does Phantom. And that's when the sky turns red. Terra can sense the Espers' seething rage. Locke did notice that they seemed angry, and as Terra pleads with them to stop, Setzer notices a vibration. And that's not the Espers, Setzer. That's the airship about to crash. With smoke billowing from the Blackjack's engines, Setzer struggles to regain control of the airship. He points it out over the ocean, where perhaps we could survive the crash. But then suddenly, it takes a turn, and the airship crashes into the ground. We were honestly lucky to narrowly avoid the mountains, but still, the ship crashes pretty hard, and with a loud explosion, everything fades to black. Well, our party is in all right shape. Everyone seems to be unscathed, but the ship has seen better days. We're not going to be able to take off anytime soon. For now, we'll need to continue our journey on foot, but just because the Blackjack has crashed doesn't mean that we can't still use the ship's amenities. We can still use the free inn here to recharge our health and magic, and we can even purchase items from the shop. If you want to change party members, you can do that too. But for now, we're going to head here into this forest near Miranda, where we can rent a chocobo, and that will allow us to get to Vector quite quickly. We've crash landed over on the western side of the Vector continent near the town of Miranda, and Vector, the city that we're looking for, that's near the center of the continent, and it's a little bit of a hike, so the chocobo is certainly recommended. Keep working your way past this small desert, and go through this narrow valley between the mountains, and that will take you to this castle-like structure, which is the city of Vector that we were looking for. I recommend that you save your game here. There is a timed event coming up, and if you don't perform well in that timed event, you may want to reset the game so that you can try it again. There are some good rewards if you do well. We're also going to equip Locke with the Assassin. There are no undead enemies in this next area, so we will be very happy if it happens to instantly kill something that Locke strikes. You definitely don't want to instant kill undead, they just come back with full health. And here in the city of Vector, we see that it is on fire. Wow, the Espers really did a number on this place. It's bad. Arvis says, "It was like this when we got here," and yes, thank you, Captain Obvious. And with that, we'll head up to the upper palace, where we are suddenly approached by an Imperial Palace guard. The Emperor has been expecting us. We have no choice but to follow this guy, and he takes us up towards the Imperial dining room. Gashtal awaits inside. Now that the Espers have ravaged the city, the Emperor understands that peace is the only option. He's lost his will to fight and is ready to negotiate. Sid says that the Emperor has had a change of heart, and yeah, that's kind of what happens when the other side holds all the cards. The Espers thought they could save their friends that were trapped in the Magitech facilities, but when they found out that they had perished, they chose to level the city instead. Never will I forget their shrieks of rage. Terra is probably the only one that can stop the Espers, so the Emperor is ready to talk peace. But first, Sid wants us to talk to the soldiers here in the city and try to speak to as many of them as we can. We only have 4 minutes to do this, and the maximum score here is 24. Definitely equip your sprint shoes if you have them, but even if you don't, it's still possible to get a decent score. You just need to make sure to talk to every person that you see and don't do anything unnecessary. Don't worry about picking up treasure chests, you'll be able to get those later, and definitely do not talk to Kefka. Some of the soldiers that you speak with will want to challenge you to battle. The time keeps ticking down while you're fighting these guys, so make sure to clear them out as quickly as possible. We definitely do not have time for backtracking, so make sure to talk to all 3 people outside here. Your total score should be 7 whenever you go back inside. And we're going to start over here on the left. Skip that first room, there's just treasure chests in here, and come up into this room where there are 6 people that we need to talk to, and we will need to fight one of these guys over here. Yeah, this one that says Returner Scum. He's just a commando, so we should be able to defeat him quite quickly, but we don't want to waste a lot of time, so clear him out with some of your best attacks, and then continue talking to soldiers. We're up to 10 now, and we now have 11. Don't worry about the treasure chest, we can come back for it later. We're not trying to waste any time, and don't miss this guy up here. Once you've talked to them all, your score should be 13, and in this room we'll meet a guy on the toilet who wants to fight us. Alright, well, if you want to get vaporized, that's what we'll do. We'll hit him with an aura bolt from Sabin, and that will quickly finish the fight. And that should bring our score up to 14. Some people fight harder after they're cast down. We have about 2 minutes left to go, so quickly head back out through the door, and we're going to go up through the door labeled F on the map. We'll talk to one guy in this corridor who brings our score up to 15, and then we'll take door G, which brings us up here to the top. There are 5 people outside here that we want to talk to. 2 of them are up on top of this platform, so we will talk to them. And then we'll go inside where we'll find another guy to talk to who wants to fight. It's just another commando, which is an enemy we could potentially defeat in a single attack, depending on which one of our characters delivers it. That one from Terra is not going to do it, but this aura bolt should finish the job. Now we have fewer than 1 minute and 20 seconds to go, but we're up to 20 people, and we only need 21 to be able to get the best reward, although we may want to try to get the maximum of 24 just in case we mess up the questions later. Of course, once you do have 21 people spoken to, you can relax a little bit, but we'll enter here where we can talk to these 2 guys, and at this point we could consider picking up some of these treasures. So we'll grab this Gale hairpin. We could come back for that hairpin later, but we don't really have to now that we've reached 24 people spoken to, which is the top possible score. So what can we do with our remaining 30 seconds? Well, I'll show you what happens if you talk to Kefka, and this is why I recommended that we avoid him. Kefka just wants to waste your time. If you don't have the sprint shoes here, talking to Kefka could destroy you because he takes about 20 seconds or more off your clock. Yeah, devastating. So avoid Kefka unless you've already reached the maximum score, and once we run out of time, we will be automatically taken to dinner. We can quickly grab these 2 treasures, that'll save us a few seconds later. And now, the banquet. As we speak to Gestalt here, we are being graded based on our responses, so make sure to choose the response that yields the most points. The more points we score, the better rewards we'll get later. Even if you don't care about the Tintabar or the Charm Bangle, you want to make sure that we at least score well enough to liberate Doma. Those are real people we're talking about here. For the first question, choose to our hometowns, and when asked about Kefka, let's say that we leave him in jail. It would be nice if they would execute that guy, but then the rest of the game couldn't happen, so there's no point in suggesting it. What he did in Doma, that was inexcusable, so get 5 points for that answer. And Gestalt will certainly apologize, but is he being sincere? General Celis, well, she is one of us. And if she is still alive, I certainly hope that that answer is not going to get her into trouble. At this point, Gestalt opens up the floor for questions, and you want to ask each one of these questions one at a time, and don't ask any of the questions twice. If you ask each of the 3 questions, you'll score a total of 6 points. I also recommend that you start with the one at the top of the list, because later on Gestalt will ask you which question did you ask first, and you will want to know the answer to that. Once all the questions have been asked, we can talk about the elephant in the room, or I guess we should say the Esper in the room. And we need to say that the Espers have gone too far. It's not a lie, they did probably overstep a smidge. And at this point, Gestalt wants to know if we've been paying attention, so tell him the question that you asked first, and you'll score another 5. The next part's a little bit strange. Sid says that we look tired, and if you say that you'll take a break, we'll have an opportunity to fight a soldier over here, and you want to do that so that we can win 5 points. So indulge this guy in a battle. These are Special Forces soldiers, so they're a little bit stronger, and we only have 2 minutes for this, so you'll want to get it done as quickly as possible. If one of these guys survives to its 3rd turn, it will have a 33% chance of using Gut Strike, which deals triple damage, but it's unlikely any of them will survive that long. After defeating the troopers, you can speak to Gestalt, but he doesn't have a lot to say, and to resume the peace talks, return to your seat in the middle of the table. There are only 2 more questions, and the thing that we want to hear Gestalt say is that your war's truly over. Yes, that is the most important thing. Once the Emperor has agreed that the fighting will cease, he has a proposition for us. The Espers aren't attacking Vector at the moment, but it's only a matter of time before they come back. They must be found, and that's why Gestalt needs Terra's help. Only she can bridge the gap between Esper and human. The Espers have been spotted near Crescent Island, so we will say that yes, we will accompany Gestalt on this mission. But of course the Emperor isn't going to go to Crescent Island himself, so in his stead he's sending General Leo, who we remember from the Imperial camp outside of Doma. Kefka tricked Leo into leaving the camp so that he could poison the castle, and while Cyan doesn't seem to blame the general for what happened, Leo still feels a bit responsible. Now, if you got a perfect score here at dinner, you would have earned a total of 49 points. Take that 49 points and add it to the number of people that you spoke to before, and you'll get your total score. If you spoke to at least 21 people earlier, you'll have a score of 70 or more, and that will get you the best rewards. For now, the party breaks into a smaller group with Jess, Terra, and Locke, but it won't be very long before we find more characters to add to our team. As we head down here, we are approached by another one of those Imperial guards, and based on our score, we get the rewards. South Figaro was liberated, the soldiers pulled out of Doma, they've unlocked the Imperial base treasure room, and we got the Tintabar, as well as the Charm Bangle. The Charm Bangle is a new one. That's a relic that reduces the amount of random encounters that we'll meet by 25% whenever it's worn. That sounds pretty good, but it's one of those things that it's kind of hard to tell if it's working or not. In the last dungeon, the Sealed Gate Cave, we encountered about 20 monster fights, so 25% of that would be 5. Would we have really noticed if we only encountered 15 monster fights instead? That would be a significant number, but it would be spread out across the entire dungeon, so it's certainly less noticeable than you'd think. As far as I know, if you wear multiple charm bangles, the effect does not stack, but you won't be able to get more charm bangles until much later in the game when you can wager at the Colosseum, so you won't have to worry about that now. As we walk away from the city of Vector, it continues to burn. Someone should maybe do something about that? Cast some water magic, or I don't know, get some buckets going? It can't be good to just keep letting it burn. In any case, our next destination is the city of Albrook, which is not very far from here. But because we performed well in the Vector peace talks, we can now get into the treasure room at the Imperial base, so we might want to stop there first. We're down to 2 characters, but they are quite powerful, so we should be fairly safe against the enemies out here on the world map. Just use your most powerful attacks. We do need to be a little bit concerned about leaving a Wyvern enemy alone, because that cyclonic attack that it can do is quite nasty. And we should be able to finish these guys with just a few melee attacks. Terra took that one down, and now hopefully Locke will clear this guy with his assassin. But no, well, we got lucky and didn't have to get hit by a cyclonic there, and Terra was able to finish the battle. So we managed to survive, and we will continue heading over here to the right. That's going to take us to the base. There are some different enemies that you'll find if you encounter some in the desert. We didn't, and up here we're just going to fight some more of the plains enemies, and it's the same configuration we fought a moment ago, 2 wyverns and a Ralph. Ice magic works well against these wyvern enemies, and the Moduin summon is pretty good against most enemies in general. This one hits everything on the screen with a non-elemental type attack, and you'll see it does some pretty good numbers. So that took care of the Ralph. The 2 wyverns are still alive, but one more shot of ice might do it here. Let's see. Yep, that's enough. With those enemies defeated, Terra learned Bolt 2, Ice 2, and Fire 2, so if we have to fight those guys again, we'll have some magic that packs a bit more punch next time. Well, that's about all Terra can learn from dear old dad, so we'll switch her over to Carbuncle, and we'll put Moduin on Locke so that he can also learn some Tier 2 elemental magic. We'll save the game and head on into the Imperial base. And this is where that treasure room is. You wouldn't be able to get in here before, but now that we've had that peace talk, this door will be open. And there are just so many chests down here. 41,000 gold pieces is already pretty great, but there are also some nice relics down here. We could always use another running shoes, those are quite useful, and a cherub down will grant permanent float status, which is great against enemies that use earthquake type attacks. We can also find a wall ring, which will protect from many spells and reflect them back at their caster. So those are something that we're going to need later on in the game. And don't miss this hidden elixir down in the lower right corner. You don't have to do that well in the peace talks to be able to open up the Imperial base, and honestly, this is one of the best rewards. Now we're going to head back to Albrook where we can continue our quest. We won't be able to get to Doma right now, which is another location that we liberated, and we won't be able to get to South Figaro either, but despite the fact that we liberated it, there's not much new to see there. Here we have a Joker and a Ralph, and we can experiment with some of that tier 2 magic we learned. The Jokers are actually weak against lightning magic, but they don't have very many hit points, so pretty much any of our tier 2 magic would be enough to defeat them. That brings us to Albrook, but if you were to walk all the way back to the Blackjack after the peace talks in Vector, you could go through this door where you'll see this special scene between Setzer and Sid. Sid is quite impressed with the inner workings of the Blackjack, and he wants to help Setzer fix the engine, but Setzer is not into it. He tells him not to touch anything and to go play in the casino. Sid doesn't seem to get the hint, so Setzer has to be a bit more direct. Once Sid does finally leave, Setzer opens up a bit about his past. Setzer seems to love the Blackjack more than anything, but in his youth, there was something that he was even more mad about. He dreamed of having the world's fastest airship, but he had a rival, a young girl named Daryl, who piloted a ship named the Falcon. Sometimes they were the worst of rivals, but sometimes they were the best of friends. And on the day when Daryl disappeared, Setzer lost his spirit. But that's all for that story right now. Let's get back to Albrook. The last time we were in the city of Albrook, we were unable to visit the docks, but now they're open for business. Before we head down there, we can speak to some of the people in town, and this merchant is very unhappy about the stinginess of the Imperial soldiers. There's an old man down on this road that tells us about the guy who is trying to sell magicite in the town of Zen, but we already bought that magicite, so we don't need to get it now. And down here, these are the docks. Don't forget to grab a free warp stone over here in this crate, and then make your way to General Leo down on the boat. When we speak to Leo, he says that another of the Empire's generals and someone he hired in town are also coming along, and could it be? Yep, it's General Celis and Shadow. We should have known. Shadow is one of the only mercenaries in this entire world, so of course he was the one that was hired in town. But Celis? Well, I guess it's good to see that she's still alive. But is anyone else surprised that the Empire gave her her old job back? She was already in trouble whenever we freed her from that South Figaro basement, and then she definitely defected. Well, Shadow promises that he won't garrote us. While it's great that he won't murder us a very specific way, it doesn't actually make me feel any more comfortable. Over here in the weapon shop, we can pick up some supplies. We know that Shadow is coming along with us, so we may want to purchase the Blossom, which is a nice upgrade for him. Once you're done shopping, we need to head to the inn, and it's going to be free of charge tonight. We need to stay at the inn here to advance the story, so that's what we're going to do. While it's nice to restore our health and magic points, late at night, Locke is unable to sleep, and he wanders outside. Was it fate? Or maybe just insomnia? In any case, outside, he runs into Celis. He tries to talk to her, but Celis just gives him the cold shoulder. She certainly deserves an apology for what happened back in the Magitech research facility, but she won't get one from Locke right now. Instead, he just says something about being her friend. Yeah, it's not great. And without saying a word, Celis walks away, making it very clear that she wants to be alone right now. With a sigh, Locke lowers his head. His relationship with Celis may be a mess, but at least she's still alive. After a good night's rest for one of us, the party regroups and we head to the docks. It's time to head to Crescent Island. All we need to do is talk to General Leo and the voyage will begin. Right. Let's go. Well, the anchor is up and we are off and running. As our ship drifts off into the sea, just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this Albrook port aboard this tiny ship. All systems are A-OK, so General Leo suggests that we take a rest. Of course, it may be hard to sleep at sea, but we'll at least give it a try. That night, up on the deck, we take control of Terra. You can talk to the soldiers here, but we need to speak to Leo to advance the story. He asks, "Are you all right?" And it does seem like Terra is feeling better, at least compared to the last time he saw her. Terra is still working through a lot of feelings, and being here with General Leo is bringing a lot of it to the surface. He says that not all of them are like Kefka, and we know that it's true. But General Leo is harboring a lot of guilt. He knew that Terra was being used as a biological weapon, and because he didn't do anything to stop it, he feels like he's no better than Kefka himself. But Terra doesn't want to talk about any of that. Now that Leo opened up to her, she has so many questions that she's just been dying to ask, and maybe Leo would understand. She's the product of a human and an Esper. Will she ever find love? Leo is optimistic, saying that Terra is just young. But what does he really know? He's just a general in the Imperial Army. How does he know what it's like to be a person that's also an Esper? I want to know what love is. In my life, there's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can face it again. With the sound of an opening door, Shadow appears. He announces loudly that he thought he'd sleep out under the stars. But Terra suspects that he may have been eavesdropping. Shadow says, "I didn't mean to overhear anything, but that certainly sounds like he heard everything." Shadow says that he can't help her, but he may have the best advice of all. He says that she needs to look within for her answers. Then he says something a bit more cryptic. In this world, there are many like me who have killed their emotions. Don't forget that. Alright, Shadow. That definitely got weird real fast. But Terra, Shadow, and Leo aren't the only ones up tonight, and it appears that Locke is having another bad night. This time, he is quite seasick. Yeah, it's a tough time being Locke right now. Although if I'm being completely honest, being physically seasick may actually be preferable to the emotional damage that Locke took the night before. Our tiny boat sails ever closer to its final destination. It seems that we're not going to land right near the town of Thamasa, and instead we're going to drop anchor somewhere south, I guess so that we won't give up the element of surprise. We can chat with some of the people here on the boat, And whenever we talk to General Leo, he says that we're almost at Crescent Island, and he's going to be taking Celis with him, while Locke and Terra are going to join up with Shadow. So we're going to be adding Shadow to our small party, but for now, Celis is going to stay on the other side. Before leaving the ship, Celis tries to say something to Locke, but this time he gives her the silent treatment and turns his back on her as he walks away. It's tough to watch. As Celis kneels down in a huff, Terra follows quickly behind. And it's finally time to get off of this ship, and we are now on Crescent Island. Make sure to equip Shadow with some good relics and equipment. We'll give him the Genji glove, and that's why we purchased 2 of those blossoms, because we knew we were going to be equipping him with 2 weapons. You also want to give him an Espers so that he can learn some magic, and it's going to be a minute before he levels up, so the next character that will need to have a good Esper for leveling is Terra. Out here on the plains, there are only 2 types of enemies that we can run into, the Cephalur and the Baskervores, and it looks like we have 1 of each right here. If a Baskervore is left alone on the battlefield, it has a 33% chance of countering anything with the Snort attack, which will remove one of your party members from battle. Cephalurs are weak against lightning, and they're sort of like a baby Ultros. They do tentacle attacks and are not particularly dangerous. The village of Thamasa is a strange little town, and the people here, they are not very welcoming of strangers. Strangers or not, they have some great stuff here at the armor shop in town. They sell Gaia gears, which protect from earth damage, and mystery veils, which increase magic by +3 and speed by +1. Unfortunately, those can only be worn by women, but we'll at least want to get one for Terra. The tiger mask is also a good buy for Sabin if you don't already have one, and here at the weapon shop, the darts are a nice upgrade for Setzer if you have the cash. The darts have 115 power, and like many other gambler weapons, deal full damage from the back row. The item shop in town is much less exciting, but it's an item shop. How exciting were you expecting it to be? They sell warp stones here, so, get hyped about that. And after talking to this strange character with a ponytail over on the right side, I'm starting to get the impression that this town has some sort of strange secret going on. Let's see if you can figure out what it is. The innkeeper doesn't like strangers and charges 1,500 gold pieces? That is highway robbery. I don't suspect that you should pay that. That's more than what a tent costs. This small child won't let us go into this large mansion, but I guess he looks pretty tough, so we won't be going in there right now. The relic shop has some nice items, but nothing that we haven't seen before. If you need to purchase another pair of earrings or 2, you could do that now. Outside in a barrel, we'll find a soft potion, and down here on the left, we can find an eye drop. There are 5 hidden items here in town, nothing too exciting, but some nice little consumables that we may get some use out of. As we walk by the back of this mansion, we see a young child randomly casting fire magic. That's like the Final Fantasy equivalent of playing with matches. Don't do that, kid. You're gonna start a house fire. Over behind this small house, we see another interesting scene. This young girl seems to have hurt herself, and her mother is about to cast Cure Magic when she notices that we were watching. At that point, she suddenly says she's going to use Cure Medicine, but it's quite clear that the young girl is used to being cured through magic. There's a phoenix down in this barrel, and then over here in this barrel we can find an echo screen, which could come in handy, and then we'll head up into the Elder's house. The mayor welcomes us to town, but acts like he doesn't know what we're talking about when we mention magic. But come on, Mr. Mayor, we've seen multiple children using magic in this town. You'd think we don't suspect the adults can do it too? And in this tiny house, we finally meet Strago Magus. Strago is a blue mage, and he is capable of learning the enemy's unique abilities through his special ability called Lore. To learn a new lore, Strago needs to be alive and present whenever an enemy uses a particular skill. Only certain enemy skills can be learned as lores. There's a fairly short list, so it's not too hard to learn them all. Strago's granddaughter is, of course, the 10-year-old Relm Aroni, and Relm has the highest starting magic power in the game, with a 44. Even after leveling up multiple times with the Zone Seek Esper, Locke is still not at a 44 magic power, so that just gives you an idea of how powerful Relm actually is. Relm is a natural spellcaster, but her unique ability Sketch is more hit or miss. She can use it to create a temporary copy of an enemy, and that copy will use one of the enemy's attacks. The real problem with Sketch is that many enemies are resistant to their own attacks, so sometimes it just doesn't work. She has an instant connection with Shadow's dog Interceptor, and the two retire to the upper floor of Strago's house. Unfortunately, we will not be able to add Relm or Strago to our party just yet, and Strago toes the company line, saying that he knows nothing about Espers. As we go to leave, Shadow summons Interceptor, who obediently returns to him. What a good puppy. We will automatically exit Strago's house, but if you turn around and go back inside, there's a hidden item that you can find upstairs. It's the Memento Ring. The Memento Ring is similar to another relic that we'll find later in the game called the Safety Bit, and it prevents instant death attacks, but the Memento Ring can only be equipped by Shadow or Relm, and mentions something about a departed mother's love. This is more than just a relic. It's also a hint of the connection between Relm and Shadow, and that's something that we'll learn a little bit more about whenever we explore Shadow's dream sequences. So the Memento Ring is certainly not an important item, but it is an interesting one, and sadly we are about to lose Shadow from our party, so I do recommend unequipping him if he has any items that you'd like your other characters to be able to use. Once you head over to the inn, you'll find that the innkeeper now only charges 1 gold piece, but in the night, Strago rushes in. It seems that one of the houses in town is on fire, and Relm is in danger. It's a little bit strange that Strago is asking strangers that he just met a few minutes ago for help, but I guess that's just what you have to do when you're feeling desperate. Shadow pretends to be asleep and doesn't join us, but when he leaves the bed, he notices that his dog is gone. Unsurprisingly, the house that's on fire is the large mansion where we saw a young child playing with fire magic earlier. Relm is trapped inside, and as we speak to Strago, the fire suddenly becomes much, much worse. Part of the house collapses. This is not good. Strago begins chanting. This is no time to be keeping secrets. He needs to use magic to put out the flames. The mayor runs to the scene, yelling that magic is forbidden, but Strago doesn't care. His granddaughter is inside that house, and magic is what it's going to take to get rid of these flames. The mayor sees that there's no choice, and he joins Strago in fighting the fire. He tells everyone else to stand back. Some of the other villagers also line up behind Strago, and they begin chanting spells of their own. Strago starts out, splashing water on the flames, and the mayor follows suit. One of the other villagers also launches a spell, but it doesn't seem like it's enough. The fire just gets worse. The mayor suggests that it's because they keep so many fire rods in there, and I guess that's like sitting on top of a stockpile of fireworks. There's only one way to get Relm out. We're going to have to go inside. It doesn't seem like we have a lot of time to waste, but this is actually not a timed event, and there are no random encounters in here. Make sure to equip Strago and take your time. This is going to be just fine. Strago is a magic user, although his natural magic power is not particularly high, so it's probably a good idea to hook him up with some earrings to focus his power. It's going to take quite a few experience points to level up Strago, but we'll definitely want to make sure he's equipped with the Zone Seek Esper whenever he levels up. Now, I said there were no random monster encounters in here, but there are definitely monsters, and if you bump into one of those walking flames, you'll have to fight some number of balloons. Balloons are weak against ice or water magic, so you can use spells like Ice 2, or you can use Strago's Aqua Rake. Aqua Rake is a water and wind-based spell, so it's both, but that doesn't make it any less effective against the balloons. An Ice 2 on all of them was enough to finish off the entire group, so that is definitely a good way to go if you're trying to fight these things fast. This time we only have to fight 3 balloons, and the one thing that you need to be concerned about whenever you're fighting these guys is if they survive to their 3rd turn, they could use the Exploder ability, which does sacrifice the balloon, but can deal big damage to one of your party members. Of course, if you're using ice or water attacks against them, it's unlikely they will make it that long. Don't forget to heal your characters between battles, and it's probably about time that we put the Zone Seek Esper on Terra so that she can get that +2 magic power whenever she levels up. We'll head through this door, and if you go in and out of this door, you can try to manipulate the position of the fires in this room, and you may be able to avoid some of them. We snuck past that first fire here, but we did get caught by the second one, but that's okay because Strago's Aqua Rake will get the job done. If you don't have a lot of ice magic for your other characters to use, consider equipping the Shiva Esper, and you can use her summon magic. That will deliver a very powerful ice magic attack to these enemies. 6 balloons this time. It could be a little bit taxing on our magic power to keep casting these high-powered spells, but we do have some items to restore magic if we need them, and this is by far the best way to deal with the balloons. Strago learned Cure, Terra, and Lock both leveled up, so we can change around some Espers. We will take the Zone Seek Esper off of Terra, and we will give her back Carbuncle. And we can use Cure from Lock to heal up the party. There are 2 doors here, but the left one is blocked by fire monsters, and anytime you try to go in there, you'll be stuck in a pincer attack between several of them. So we'll have to clear out these balloons. You can't run away when you're in a pincer attack, at least not until you've cleared out some of the enemies. And we will use the Aqua Rake to finish the job. So don't try to go in the left door unless you want to keep fighting monsters, but it's not the best way to earn experience points or magic, so you just want to go through the right door. And if you go through the right door here, you'll find a fire rod. Do not equip the fire rod. That is not very good against these fire-based enemies. We're just going to keep using Aqua Rake here, Because we hooked up Strago with those earrings, this Aqua Rake spell is exceptionally powerful and will not fail in getting rid of those balloons. We need to go in this door on the left, and here we are presented with two more doors. Over on the right side, we'll find an ice rod, and this is one that we should absolutely equip because the ice rod is quite good against fire monsters. We're going to equip Strago with Zone Seek so he can get that benefit whenever he levels up. And we'll bump into another fire monster over here, which we can quickly clear out. We did equip Strago with that ice rod so we can try it out, but for the most part we want to be using Aqua Rake against these enemies, even if the ice rod is pretty effective. If Strago were to run out of MP, at least now that he has the ice rod, he has something useful he can be doing. Whenever we go through the left door here, we are very close to the boss, so you'll want to do some final preparations. Make sure everyone is healed up, and you may want to make sure that you have a decent amount of magic points, because this monster that is the source of the blaze is very vulnerable to our powerful magic. The boss starts with its bomblet attack that summons 4 balloons. It will use this attack at regular intervals if you clear out the balloons, and if the battle goes on long enough, it will eventually summon a grenade, which is much stronger than a balloon. A good strategy is to start the battle by using Carbuncle's Ruby Power Summon. This will put Reflect on all of our party members, so now the enemy won't be able to cast spells against us. The fire magic that it tries to hit us with is reflected back at the boss, and it absorbs fire magic, so that does give it a little bit of healing, but at least our characters aren't being damaged. Your natural instinct will be to use ice magic against this boss, but it's also weak against other magic types like holy or lightning, so if you don't have ice magic, you may have other options. After taking 6 hits, the Flame Eater will cast Protect and Reflect on itself, so you need to be very careful about casting your magic against it, as it now could be reflected back at our party. However, Strago's Aqua Rake cannot be reflected, so that's a very powerful spell that we can still use. You could also theoretically cast ice magic on our own party members, and our reflect shields will bounce it back at the boss, and it won't be able to be reflected again. The boss takes advantage of its own reflect shield and will cast some magic on itself, which will be reflected back at our party, and that will get around our own reflect shields, but at this late stage in the battle, it won't take too much more to get rid of the Flame Eater. And with that, the boss is defeated. Of course, that's not the only way to deal with the Flame Eater. If the Flame Eater were to run out of magic points, and it only has 480 magic points to start with, it will die. We can use our Osmose and Rasp spells to steal the Flame Eater's magic, and eventually it will go down from this. You'll want to use Osmose whenever your characters are low on magic points themselves, and whenever your characters are close to full, they should be using Rasp instead. You won't be able to deal as much damage with Osmose if you already have full magic points. You'll notice that we are hitting the boss for over 100 magic points each time, so it will not take much of this to beat this guy. Also, because the boss isn't taking damage, it will never use Protect and Reflect on itself, so you don't have to worry about that either. You don't even have to defeat the balloon enemies, just focus your anti-magic power on the Flame Eater, and it will go down very quickly. Well, the Flame Eater is gone, but where is Relm? And are we not worried about smoke inhalation here? The entire area around us is completely engulfed in flame. Well, there's Interceptor. He seems to have found Relm, but she's passed out. Are we too late? As a loud explosion is heard, everything fades to black. Interceptor seems to be holding back the flames, but our entire party has passed out. Yeah, probably from smoke inhalation. This is not good. But just in the nick of time, Shadow drops in out of the sky. Don't ask how he did that, and also don't ask how he's able to defeat all of those fires at one time. But he does, and we are thankful for it. He may have only shown up to rescue his dog, but it looks like he's going to save the rest of us as well. He uses a smoke bomb to escape the burning building, because that makes total sense. Back at Strago's house, Relm finally wakes up. She's okay. But I think the cat's out of the bag here. Now that we know the people in this town can use magic, the real question is, how? Well, it turns out that Strago and his people are the descendants of the Mage Warriors. The people that long ago used magicite to gain magical powers, and they were the ones that fought in the front lines in the War of the Magi. After the war ended, the remaining Mage Warriors wanted to live peacefully, but the surviving humans were afraid. They hunted them down like animals. The few that escaped formed this village. Over time, their powers have diminished, but some of it still remains. Strago feels like he owes us one for saving Relm, so he agrees to help us find the Espers. Relm wants to help too, but she is not allowed. Aw, come on, Strago. Relm may actually be the more powerful of the two of you. Legend has it that the Espers were created in the nearby mountains, so maybe that's where they're gathering. It's at least worth a look, and as the party comes together, we head on outside. And outside, well, it seems that Shadow has decided to abandon us again. This is really nothing new when it comes to Shadow. This guy follows the beat of his own drummer, and when he decides that it's time to leave, there's no convincing him otherwise. He says that he just wanted his dog back, and maybe that's true. Or maybe he felt a connection to us, or to Relm, that he just couldn't ignore. He says that he'll look for the Espers in his own way, and he calls for his dog to come. But as Shadow walks off, Interceptor turns around one last time and gives Relm a friendly bark. And with that, Shadow's story is over for the moment, but we'll definitely see him again. Now that we've made friends with Strago and Relm, the people in town are a lot more friendly. Some of them will give us tips on how to learn different lores, and the mayor says that no one is to divulge that the people here can cast magic. Your secret's safe with us, Mayor. Don't worry about it. This kid says that his house burned down, and yeah, we know. We were in there, kid. And with that, it's time to finally leave Thamasa. Outside the village, Strago leveled up so we can switch around his Espers. His lore ability can be very useful. Having magic that penetrates enemies' reflect shields is awesome. It's just unfortunate that his stats are so bad. Strago will need some serious help from Espers to keep up with the rest of the party, but we can turn him into a good caster. And outside, we've run into the Cephalosaur-Baskervore combo again. We've seen these enemies before. You're better off taking out the Baskervore first, because if you leave it behind as the only enemy, it could potentially sneeze away one of your party members, and that would be somewhat annoying. Those guys are easy, but once we get into the forested areas, there is a different enemy that we may encounter, the Chimera. And right on cue, there's one now. On its third turn, a Chimera will have a 33% chance of using Aqua Breath against us, But the real danger comes if you leave the Chimera alone on the battlefield. Then each turn it has a 33% chance of doing a very dangerous magic attack. And the third one in its list is Cyclonic, which will severely damage our party. We would rather avoid that, so do what you can to take out those chimeras quickly. Here we have another battle, and this time there is no chimera, so Cephalars are weak against lightning magic, and we can certainly exploit that weakness. And we're just going to have Strago continue to use his Aqua Rake magic. It's reasonably powerful, and it should do a good job against anything that we come up against in this forest. We're looking for a cave in the mountains west of town, and if you had come here earlier, this cave would not have been here. Until you recruit Strago, it's as if this cave doesn't exist. This cave is the Espers gathering place, and it's a full-fledged dungeon, so make sure to heal your party and save your game before heading inside. Just to the left of the entrance, we'll find a chest that contains a unique weapon. The heal rod heals whatever it hits. So if you try to attack enemies with it, you'll probably give them back hit points, unless you're attacking undead. However, you could use it to attack your own party members, and then they will receive the benefits of the healing. So it works in sort of a backwards way, but it's a very interesting option for Strago. There are two sets of monsters in this area, the inside monsters and the outside monsters. And inside you're just going to meet Slurms and Adamantists. And if you have to fight the Slurms, they're weak against fire magic, so using a tier 2 fire spell against them should quickly wipe them off the map. This area is a bit of a maze. We'll see Relm running over on the left side, but we actually want to take the door on the right. Either of the doors on the left will loop you around and you won't get anywhere. Here we have one of the outside monster configurations, 3 Mandrakes. Mandrakes are weak against fire, but they absorb water, so don't use Strago's Aqua Rake against them. If you attack them with anything, including magic, they have a 1 in 3 chance of using Raid. Raid will absorb health from your characters, and they can use it even if they're about to die. Luckily, the absorbed health won't keep them alive if that's the case. If Mandrakes survive to their 3rd turn, they have a 1 in 3 chance of using an attack that can petrify one of our party members, so make sure to cook them with fire before they can do that. Cut across the bottom of the large bridge cavern, and you'll enter this room, which contains no random monster encounters. Make your way to the mysterious statues. These 3 small gold statues don't have any magical powers of their own. The Espers made them to represent the 3 real statues from their homeworld, and those statues are the source of all magic. They have power beyond all comprehension. And yeah, I guess that's a cool legend, Strago, but I can comprehend a whole heck of a lot of power, so I guess I'll believe it when I see it. Terra hypothesizes that the barrier that keeps the sealed gate sealed could be generated by those magical statues. And she's probably right about that. As the party notices an opening in the upper left, Relm watches on from the right. And as we head down the stairs, Ultros comes out of the sky? Can't say I saw that one coming. We've faced Ultros 2 times now, and it seems like we're about to fight him again. He mentions something about Siegfried, the mysterious character that we met on the Phantom train. Interesting. Well, looks like it's time to battle. This version of Ultros is arguably his most powerful. One thing that you should not do against this guy is use the same type of elemental magic against him 4 times. If you do, he will counter with a tier 3 version of that spell, and that would be very bad. So mix it up a little bit. Use melee attacks. If you need to heal your party, you can have Strago attack a party member with his heal rod for a very effective free heal. You'll notice Ultros slowly getting closer to the party, and you don't want him to get too close. But if you just keep up the pressure, whenever you hit him, he'll be forced to back off. Ultros is weak against fire and lightning attacks, and he absorbs water, so you don't want to use Aqua Rake against this guy. He has 22,000 hit points, but you only need to deal about 12,000 points of damage before Relm will appear. When Ultros uses haste and protect on himself, that means we've reduced his HP down to below 15,360, which means we only need to deal about 5,000 more damage before Relm will show up, and when Relm appears, that ends the battle, so that's what we were trying to do. This one ends in sort of a scripted story sort of way. This Lodestone spell is an earth-based attack, and it's one of the ones that Mog can use with some of his dances. That was our 4th fire spell, but because it dealt enough damage to trigger the event, Ultros doesn't do the counterattack. Okay, so the battle is not officially over at this point. We could technically mess it up, but all we need to do here is have Relm use her sketch ability. And the game will make it pretty clear that that's what they want us to do. It's sort of like when we first get Sabin and they want us to use the pummel skill against Vargas. This works in a similar way. Ultros says that he doesn't want his portrait sketched, so Relm takes a passive-aggressive approach and says that she'll throw herself off a cliff if he doesn't allow it. Now, you might think that Ultros, the evil octopus, wouldn't be sympathetic to a child that wants to draw his picture, but this guy is a cartoon villain, so of course this silly plot works. "Well, what do you want I should do?" he says. "Ask her to draw your portrait. She may actually make you look pleasant. Don't be so heartless." This guy. What a maroon. Ultros caves and says Uncle Ulti really wants you to draw his picture. Oh yeah, Ultros, you're gonna love it. Once you regain control, don't worry about what the other characters do, but when you get Relm's turn, make sure to use Sketch. The sketched boss will attack with Tentacle, but what really wins the battle is that Ultros has an existential crisis and realizes he's nothing but a stupid octopus. Well, I guess that's one way to win, but another way you can win is to use the Vanish Doom trick. So have one character cast Vanish on Ultros, and then follow it up with Doom. Ultros is immune to Doom, but Doom can't miss on a vanished character, so it will work and instantly vaporize him. If you defeat him in this way, it will skip past Relm's appearance scene, although you'll still get to add her to your party after the fight. Relm really wants to join the squad, and although she's quite young, she has an extremely high magic power stat, so why wouldn't we want her along? It's worth noting that Ultros inflicted Strago with the Darkness status, which doesn't usually do anything in this version of the game, but on Strago, it can prevent him from learning lores, so if you notice that Strago has been inflicted with Darkness, you will actually want to heal it. Now we're going to use a tent here at this save point, so that will fix any bad statuses that we had, but if he were inflicted with Darkness somewhere away from a save point, you may actually want to do something about it. Here we have two Adamantist enemies, which are sort of like an upgraded version of the Baskervores that we saw outside. These guys can counter anything that you throw at them with a sneeze attack that will remove one of your party members from the battle. The Baskervores would only sneeze your party members away when they were left alone, but Adamantists have a 1 in 3 chance of doing it against anything you throw at them. Terra leveled up there, and Locke is getting very close, so we're going to need to switch around our Espers again. And once we're done doing that, you'll notice that there are 3 curious looking spots on the ground in this room, and if you walk onto one of those, you will fall through the floor and you'll land down in the bridge cavern below. So we're going to start with this hole up here. That's the one labeled E on the map. We're going to be able to get some treasure by exploring the holes labeled E and G, but if you just want to get to the end, you should take the hole at the bottom, which is the one labeled H. Out here we'll find the Chocobo suit, which is a special armor for Relm or Strago, and it provides a lot of nice bonuses, including +6 speed. Also +3 vigor and +2 stamina, as well as resistance to poison. Lots of good stuff there. Here we have 2 abolishers, and this is one of our first opportunities for Strago to learn a new lore. If you make these guys last long enough, they will use the Pearl Wind attack. So you need for them to survive to their 3rd turn, and they will use it every time. So just don't kill the abolishers right away, and we will let them do it. And here it is, Pearl Wind. Pearl Wind restores health to the entire party, so once you see them do it, you will be able to learn the lore at the end of the battle, assuming that Strago wasn't dead or inflicted by some sort of negative status whenever they used the Pearl Wind, but he definitely saw it, so now that the battle is over, we will see that we learned Pearl Wind. Nice. When Strago casts Pearl Wind, it costs 45 magic points, and it restores an amount of health to each party member, including himself, related to his current HP. So this is a nice bit of curative magic that scales up as the game goes on, and even better, like most lores, it works through reflect shields. So if you're using wall rings to protect your party against enemy spells, sometimes it can be hard to cure the party in battle, but Pearl Wind can do that for you. Over here we'll find the Tabby suit, which is another exclusive armor for Relm and Strago. I think I like the Chocobo suit a little bit better with its +6 speed, but the Tabby suit provides +2 vigor, +2 speed, +2 stamina, +2 magic power, and provides the poison protection as well, so it is a very nice suit of armor. Insicars are probably the rarest monster that you'll encounter in this area. They only appear outside and only in this configuration with the one Mandrake. You can use Aqua Rake here. Its wind property works very good against the Insicars, but it will heal the Mandrake. All of these enemies, on the other hand, are weak against fire magic, so that's probably a better way to go. On their first turn and every other turn afterwards, Insicars have a 1 in 3 chance of inflicting Berserk on one of your party members, which is not a huge problem, but it could be awkward if they did it to Strago while he was using the heal rod. Back inside, we'll drop down to this area where we've encountered an adamantist and 2 slurms. Now, I've seen Futurama, I know where slurm comes from, and we can try sketching it, but I guess that's good for slightly over 100 damage. If we really want to mess up these slurms, we need to use fire magic. And the adamantist used its sneeze attack, removing Locke from the battle. That's annoying, but it does mean that our party can't be annihilated here. Even if the other 3 characters were killed, it's almost like Locke ran away. Strago learned the life spell. It's always nice to have more characters that know that one. And we're going to head down through this door into the statue room. No monsters in the statue room, but there are monsters here in the save room. Before we get attacked, we can save our game, and we can even use a tent to restore our HPs and MPs. We have a decent number of tents, so it's okay to use one here. Now that everyone is restored, we'll save the game, and this time we're going to take the hole labeled G. Remember, the one labeled H will take you to the goal if that's where you need to go, but here we'll be able to head outside on the right, But before that, we'll face the Adamantist and the 2 Slurms again. Oh no, not Slurms! None of these enemies are weak against Aqua Rake, but it's one of Strago's better moves, so we're gonna do it anyways. And you'll see that it should be enough to take out the Slurms, and it was almost enough to defeat the Adamantist too, but we're gonna overkill him with Terra, who did enough damage to defeat him almost twice over. Over through the door on the right, we'll be able to grab an X Potion. X Potions are useful items. They can restore a character's health completely, but to be completely honest, we don't really need this X Potion, so if you feel like skipping this one, go for it. Drop down here and we'll be right near the door for the statue room, and we can leisurely walk through it. And over here we'll be back to the save room. I don't think we need to use a tent this time, but before we can decide that, we'll face an Adamantist and 2 more Slurms. We can try some slightly different strategies here, maybe do some melee attacks. Almost anything that we do against these guys is going to be good. Slurms don't have very many hit points, so even Relm's simple melee attack was enough to defeat one. And Locke was sneezed away again. That guy really doesn't like Locke for some reason. And here comes an Aqua Rake, which should easily finish the battle. And yes, that was certainly enough. And with that, Strago gained a level, and he also learned a new spell. So we can check his status, up to 38 magic power. Only 6 more levels until he gets to where Relm started. We can now change his Espers around. He doesn't need Zone Seek at the moment. We can put him on Seraphim, which will teach him some curative magic. Relm can use the Zone Seek though. She started with a high magic power, but we can take it much, much higher. The bonus for magic power caps out at 256, so the sky is pretty much the limit on that stat. This time we went through the hole labeled H, and we're going to make our way towards the large door in the back of this area. But first, we just can't avoid the Adamantist and a pair of Slurms. After seeing this battle a number of times, I'm pretty sure the best course of action is to try to do a couple melee attacks against the Adamantist, and then just use a big spell like Aqua Rake or Fire 2, which will get rid of the 2 Slurms and should do almost enough damage, if not enough on its own, to finish off the Adamantist. So our melee attacks should be enough to get the job done. Relm leveled up, and so we can change around her Espers, and we can see that she now has 48 magic power. It's unfortunate that her sketch ability isn't better. If it was, I'd probably want to use Relm a lot more often, but that boosted magic power is something else. And once you make it to about this point in the cave, you have completed the dungeon. We found the displaced Espers. The Espers don't look especially menacing, but we know from what they did to the city of Vector that they are actually quite dangerous, and there are a lot of them here. As more and more Espers start emerging from the caves, Locke recommends that Strago takes Relm and gets out of here. He certainly agrees, but it's too late. We're already surrounded by Espers. If these Espers want to fight, we're done for. Back when we fought Shiva and Ifrit in the Magitech research facility, they had been drained of almost all of their power. These ones are at full strength, and there are a ton of them. The leader decides to speak with us. Its name is Yura. Strago senses immense magical power in Terra, and yeah, she's a 54 right now. Locke says, I wonder if she's gonna go ballistic again. And yeah, that's not gonna make Strago and Relm feel any better. After several blue flashes, the scene fades to black, and it seems like some time has elapsed. Yura can sense that Terra is different. That's right, she's part Esper. It seems that these Espers had been congregating near the sealed gate, trying to figure out a way to save the Espers that were trapped on the other side, and then somehow Terra managed to open the gate. I'm not sure if opening the sealed gate is a unique thing that only Terra can do, or if all of the other Espers could open the gate, they just choose not to. In the aftermath of the destruction that the Espers wrought upon Vector, they feel very sorry for what they have done. Locke is ready to accept their apology, but it wasn't his home that got destroyed. The Empire may not be quite as forgiving. And with that, we return to Thamasa. Leo and Celis are both here, which is good because I wasn't sure what their plan was whenever we split up on the boat. Leo is one of the most reasonable and level-headed generals that the Empire has, and he is ready to talk peace with the Espers. Leo admits that the Empire wasn't without fault. They hungered for power, and because of that, they killed many Espers. Yura agrees that the atrocities committed were terrible, but the Espers are ready to put it all behind them. And with that, peace was made. Honestly, after everything else we've been through, this seemed just a little bit too easy. Everyone has a good chuckle, but it's not long before the party is interrupted. It's Kefka! Of course Kefka was following us. What fools we were to think that Gestalt actually would want peace. All he really wanted was more magicite. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, yeah, we should have definitely seen this coming. Kefka even brought with him a full brigade of Magitech soldiers. He doesn't even care if they hit his own people. One of the troopers fires a blast that knocks down Locke and Celis. General Leo is not having it. This isn't what he signed up for. But this was the plan all along. Kefka starts ruthlessly killing the Espers, and then he telekinetically pulls the magicite shards to himself. He doesn't even have to move. As he gleefully slays the Espers, he laughs maniacally. What a piece of work. Just for fun, Kefka tells his Magitech soldiers to trash the village, and they begin to burn it down. Watching this wanton destruction brings General Leo to his boiling point. He tells Kefka to stop, but Kefka is not listening. With a blast from a Magitech armor, it looks like Leo is down and out, but at this point we actually gain control of him. And it's time for a battle with Kefka. General Leo is insanely powerful. His shock ability deals about 1500 damage and is the better of our two options. You can also choose to fight, and whenever Leo fights, well, he hits hard and he hits 4 times in a row. That is extremely powerful. Shock still deals about 50% more damage than the total of his melee attacks, so I recommend using Shock each time. This is a story battle, and if you just keep attacking or using Shock, you'll certainly win. However, it is possible to lose. You won't be able to hit yourself, but if you just sort of walk away from the game and leave the active battle mode on, Kefka can kill Leo, and if he does, you will have to go back to the last time that you saved. Once Kefka disappears, Leo seems to know that he's not been completely destroyed, and then we hear the letters EMPERORGESTAHL, Emperor Gestahl. Gestahl appears in a puff of smoke and, come on, General Leo. The Emperor wouldn't just materialize like that. You know that it's Kefka. But sadly, General Leo can't hear us, so he completely falls for Kefka's trick. To be fair, Kefka's Gestahl impression is very convincing, and once General Leo realizes what's happened, it's far too late. That wasn't even Kefka we were fighting before. It was some sort of shadow projection that he had manifested. Kefka himself is completely unscathed. Leo tells him to shut up, but Kefka says, "You're such a violent little brute. I'll tell your liege that I had to exterminate a traitor." And then he violently murders General Leo. And that's it. Leo's dead. We won't get to use him again. At least not in a normal playthrough of the game. What a waste. Leo would have been an incredible addition to our party, but like many others, he was tricked by Kefka. We're out here playing checkers, and Kefka's playing triple triad with a deck full of main characters. We just can't compete. Suddenly, we're teleported back to the sealed gate. I'm not sure how we're able to see this. Maybe Terra is experiencing it as some sort of vision, but it appears that the permanence of the seal on this gate was greatly exaggerated because it blows open and Espers start flying out again. It's as if they can feel the pain of the other Espers that Kefka killed, and they're rushing out to try to help. But this is a bad idea. Those Espers should turn back. Kefka has been able to kill any Esper that got near him. What kind of chances will these ones have? The Espers rise high up above the sealed gate. They turn to the right and make a beeline for the village of Thamasa. They move very quickly, and in a mere few seconds they arrive in town. Terra, tell them to turn back. Kefka's just going to turn them into more magicite. This is very bad. But there's nothing we can do. Our party members are all knocked out, and even if they did regain consciousness, Kefka is just too powerful. He casts some sort of stop magic on everyone, and once the world's time has been frozen, he starts killing Espers again. One by one, the magicite shards fly to him, and after each one, he laughs. No one should have this much power. Does the Emperor really think that Kefka will share it with him? At this point, one of the Espers challenges Kefka to a duel, but it's no use. Its Fire 1, Fire 2, and Fire 3 spells are all blocked. Kefka just laughs. Without missing a beat, Kefka conjures his powerful X-Zone magic, and with a spiral of stars, the Esper is absorbed and transformed to magicite. It's just another gem to add to Kefka's collection. This one is warm to the touch. And then, with a laugh and one more powerful spell, Kefka exterminates all of the remaining Espers. A spiral of stars emerges from Kefka, and when they return, they are a whole bunch of magicite shards. But he's not done yet. Kefka knows exactly where to find more Espers, behind the gate that was once sealed. That's pretty bad news, but before we move on, let's take a look at this trick you can perform whenever you're General Leo. If you head down here, you're not supposed to be able to go past this guard, but if you bring up the menu and hold down as you press B to exit the menu, you'll be able to walk right through that guy, and then you can go out of bounds and explore parts of town that you normally wouldn't have access to. This is just for fun. There's nothing really exciting to find out here, and you'll notice that some of the scenery you can even just walk through, like those tombstones. It's as if they're illusions. Whenever you're done walking out of bounds, you can head back to the Guardian, which would normally guard this area, and if you talk to him, it'll trigger a battle, but once you run away, you'll be able to go back within bounds. So you're not trapped out here forever. Before we go back though, let's take a look at the left side and see what's over here. There was a little bit of a glitch whenever we walked over to the left, but nothing too exciting. And here you can see that the trooper wants to fight now, and this is the Guardian. We won't be able to reverse Joker Doom this guy, so you definitely want to run away. And run away we shall. Come on, General Leo, hurry up and run. And that's it. That's how you get back within bounds. So see, now you can walk back into the town. And now we're back to the story. General Leo, well, he was a good man, and they made a nice monument to him here in Thamasa. Terra was especially affected by the loss. She wanted to learn so much more from him. She really liked General Leo, but how could she not? He was one of the only people in this entire game that wasn't trying to take advantage of her. Interceptor shows up with a nasty wound, and it looks like this is bad news for Shadow. Locke takes care of the dog, and Celis seems to think that Shadow is dead, but nah, not Shadow. That guy's way too tough to die. As this somber scene fades out, we switch to a sky view of the Blackjack. It looks like Setzer got her up and flying again. The rest of the team is with him. Setzer understands now that the Emperor lied and, well, of course he did. He's a bad dude, and so is Kefka. It sounds like Edgar pumped one of the servant girls for information, and he finally hit pay dirt. But it makes perfect sense. Someone like Gestalt would reveal the entire plot in front of a servant and not even notice she was there. Locke tells the others what happened, and Cyan is very upset. He says that Leo was one of their finest soldiers. Of course, Strago and Relm have already been fighting on our side, but at this point, they officially become part of the larger group. Strago expects the Empire to flex its newly found powers soon, and he doesn't know how right he is. Of course, Relm's going to join the squad whether Strago likes it or not. She calls Sabin a puffed up aerobics instructor and threatens to paint his portrait. Luckily, everyone calms Relm down before she can pick up a paintbrush, and Strago finally caves, as if he had any choice in the matter. The real good news here is that we're about to get our airship back, and we can take it wherever we want it. But as soon as we actually board the Blackjack, Setzer tells us something interesting. I guess when Edgar found out the Empire's plan, he heard that they were looking for something beyond just Espers. They want the statues. It was the statues that had the power to seal off the gate that leads to the Esper homeworld, and legend has it, those statues are the source of all magical power. If Kefka and Gestalt get their hands on those, well, the results could be disastrous. And we see those results right away. A rumble is heard from beneath the earth. Where is it coming from? What's going on? And then suddenly, the fractures appeared. Someone better call Tony Stark, because Kefka just did an Age of Ultron on this place. Tearing a huge chunk of land from the earth, Kefka floated a piece of it away, creating his own floating continent. That's the kind of power that the statues hold. The power to rearrange the face of the earth. This is not good. The real statues are much more impressive looking than their golden counterparts that we saw in the caves. These are the Goddess, the Poltergeist, and Doom, the beginning of all magic. It is said that they somehow neutralize each other's power, but if the three statues should ever be moved out of alignment, the result would rearrange the face of our planet. I wonder what Kefka is planning to do with those. At this point, when you take the wheel of the Blackjack, you'll have the option to find the floating continent, but we're not going to go there just yet. For now, let's head down inside and change up our party. Right now, we have 11 characters that we can choose from. We just got Strago, and if you're interested in using him, we should probably teach him some lores. The easiest way to teach Strago lores is using Gao. Many of the rages that Gao can learn on the Veldt can actually teach Strago lores. All we need to do is have Gao use that rage, and we'll just wait for him to use the lore, and as long as Strago is alive and not afflicted by some sort of status ailment whenever Gao uses it, at the end of the battle, he will permanently learn that lore. It's also probably a good idea to try to learn some more rages for Gao now that we've encountered a lot of other monsters in the wild. You won't be able to meet any monsters on the Veldt that you haven't met somewhere else first, but we haven't been to the Veldt in a while, and it would be a good idea to teach Gao some more rages so that he in turn could teach Strago some lores. With that in mind, before we go running off to the Veldt, it would be a good idea to try to encounter a few more unique monster types before we head over there. And there are a couple of places we can go now that we have the Blackjack that have very interesting monsters for us to fight. Once we have our party completely set up with equipment, relics, and espers, we can lift off, and the first place that we're going to go is called Bomb Island. Bomb Island is just west of the Veldt, so you just want to look for a patch of trees across the water from where the Veldt is. So there's the Veldt right there, there's the river, and this is the forest that we're looking for. It's not really an island per se, but you'll meet a lot of bombs in this area, and if you're lucky, you might even meet a grenade. Grenades are way more powerful than bombs with 3,000 hit points, and if you use a normal attack against them, they have a 1 in 3 chance of using Exploder, which will cause the grenade to self-destruct, but it will deal big damage to one of your party members. Luckily, this is a lore that Strago can learn, and Strago was present when the grenade used it, so now he also knows Exploder. The grenades only appear in the forested area there, and they only appear 7% of the time, so you may need to fight several monster encounters before you find one. A much easier monster to find lurks over here near the city of Vector. This is one that you may have run into before, but whenever we were fighting in this area, we never happened to run into weed feeders, and here they are. Weed feeders are weak against wind or fire attacks, so you can use Aqua Rake or perhaps some sort of fire magic. That would all be good. Whenever you sketch them, they will attempt to use Life Shaver, which is not very good against weed feeders, but would be interesting if they were mixed with other enemies. This highlights a major problem with Sketch. Luckily, the Aqua Rake is there to finish the battle, and it does more than enough damage to take out the Weed Feeders. Nice work, Strago. And now that we've encountered those monsters, we will head back to the Blackjack. Now let's head over to the actual Veldt. Once we get over there, we should maybe change up our party. In addition to learning lores and rages, if we have Locke in our party, we can also have him steal items from the enemies that we re-encounter here on the Veldt. We might be able to get some really good stuff. Something else to consider is that while we are fighting on the Veldt, we won't gain any experience points, but we will be able to gain magic points so that we can learn spells from Espers. So if there are some characters that you'd like to teach more magic to, taking them to the Veldt while you're trying to learn rages is a good idea. Make sure to equip everybody with the best possible gear, and then it's time to land this ship. Keep in mind that you won't be able to run away from any monsters that you meet here on the Veldt, but you can use warp stones or warp magic to get away. If you look at the full list of rages over on the left side of the screen, the ones that you see that are bolded are the ones that we can use to teach Strago lores, so you want to especially look for those ones. At this point in the game, the Stray Cat rage is still probably the best general purpose rage that we can use, but there's a few more that we might want to find, like Hades Gygus, which can use magnitude 8 and do an earthquake attack to all the enemies. That's kinda good. Don't forget to equip Gal with Espers. He can learn magic just like any other character, and that's going to make him far more useful than he was before. You'll also want to stay fairly close to the airship so that you can use the free inn whenever you need it. And here we have an interesting opportunity. This enemy is called a Grease Monk, and if you muddle a Grease Monk, it has the chance of using the Step Mine lore. It'll only use it when it's muddled. This is a very specific thing, so we don't want to kill this guy. We just want to keep him muddled, and he didn't do it the first time, but maybe he'll do it if we muddle him again. Step Mine is a very interesting lore that deals more damage based on how many steps we've taken throughout the entire game. It will get quite powerful later on. And there's the Step Mine. It actually killed the Grease Monk itself, but Strago still learned the lore. So if you see that guy, make sure to give it a muddle. And now it's time for a Veldt montage. Remember, you will learn all of the rages for the monsters that were on screen whenever Gal does the leap, but also when Gal returns. Make sure you don't attack Gal when he returns though, or he'll run off, and you won't learn any rages that time. Also remember, when Gal is not in your party, he's not going to return if you're in like a pincer attack or something like that. Gal will only come back when you're in a normal monster configuration. Even if you are in a normal monster configuration, it's not guaranteed that Gal will come back, so you may need to fight several battles before you find him. If you only care about learning rages, if you're in a pincer attack or something like that, you may want to use the warp spell to escape from it quickly, because you know Gal's not coming back after that battle. Carbuncle can teach you the warp spell if you don't already know it. Warp stones work too, but keeping a big pile of warp stones to escape enemies on the Veldt is not particularly sustainable. And every now and again, you may face a dangerous battle out here, so don't be afraid to go into the Blackjack between fights to restore your health. Oh, there's the grenades, so we learned that rage. Nice. Believe it or not, the grenade rage does not make Gal sacrifice himself. Instead, it casts a blaze spell, so that's kinda nice. The bomb rage does cause Gal to sacrifice himself, so that's not one that I would use in a normal circumstance. Now that we learned a bunch of new rages, let's use a few of them so that we can teach Strago those lores. One of the ones we just got is the Zombone rage, and that can teach Strago the Condemned lore. Condemned will put a timer on an enemy, and when that timer expires, the enemy dies. This is not one that I use very often, but I suppose there could be some corner cases where it might be useful. Most enemies die long before Condemned would kill them, but you can see there that Strago learned Condemned. Another one that we can use is the Trapper rage. That can teach Strago level 3 Muddle. The level lores are some of the more interesting ones. If you know what level your enemies are, if that level divides evenly by 3, level 3 Muddle will work against them. If it doesn't divide evenly by 3, if the monster's like level 7 or something, then it won't work. Level 4 Flare is similar. It only works against enemies that have a level that's a multiple of 4, and this one deals damage instead of confusing the enemies. And we can take a look at all of the rages we have for Gao now, and it's quite an extensive list. Still, there are many enemies that we haven't encountered yet, but there's quite a bit of game left. So down here on these last few pages, there aren't quite as many filled in, but we're doing good on the rages. Let's take a look at Strago's lores. We have a number of his lores, and we actually have some of the most useful ones, although he comes with Aqua Rake and Stone, which are two of the best. There are a few good lores that we'll have to get later on in the game, like Clean Sweep, which is a more powerful water attack, Sour Mouth, which can inflict statuses on enemies, and of course Grand Train. But for now, we have a pretty decent list. Whenever we did the peace talks in Vector, they liberated Doma Castle, so we can go in here now and collect some treasure. Although the castle is now free, there are no living souls within. Don't miss the elixir in this clock. They certainly won't need a working clock there anymore. And in this room, you can take a free rest. Other than the elixir, there's not a whole lot of good stuff here in Doma Castle. The most unique item is a relic called the Beads. The beads increase your evasion, and sadly, because of the evasion bug in this version of the game, the beads don't really do anything. Unlike the Zephyr Cape, there's no exception built in for a special animation to make the beads work, so I don't recommend equipping those anytime soon. It's arguable that the beads are the most useless relic in the entire game. Even a relic that only prevents darkness would still be beneficial to Strago, because if he's afflicted by darkness, he won't be able to learn lores, so even that is better than something that just increases evasion. That essentially makes the beads a useless novelty. And once we're done in Doma, we can return to the Blackjack, and you may have noticed that there's a triangular-shaped island in this area, over off the eastern coast. This island is home to the most powerful regular monster in the world of balance. This monster is more powerful than many late-game bosses, so make sure to bring your best party when you decide to fight it. This thing is called the Intangir, and it's a type of behemoth that starts out invisible whenever you first meet it. You might run into an Intangir anywhere on this island, but you are more likely to run into one in the tiny forested area, so that's where we're going to search. If you don't meet an Intangir here, the other monsters that you could potentially encounter are trivially easy to defeat, but this is what we were looking for, an invisible monster. Because the Intangir is invisible, if you use Doom magic, it will work and automatically defeat it. Now, it may get to use its death attack, which is the monster version of Meteo, and that has a good chance of defeating one of your party members, but dooming the Intangir is one way you could fight it. Now, what if you want to fight this guy without taking advantage of the fact that invisible enemies are vulnerable to Doom? Well, whenever the fight starts, it's not only visible, it's also asleep, so you do need to be a little bit careful when you wake it up. Hitting the monster with a spell will make it visible, and it is vulnerable to stop. So stop is a great way to start off the fight. This guy absorbs magic of all elements, so you don't want to do anything that's fire, ice, wind, water, lightning, earth, none of that. It will heal this monster. Instead, we want to focus on keeping it stopped, and then we want to start using attacks that go through its defenses. Edgar's drill is perfect for this, and the chainsaw works too, but 1 in 4 times it will attempt the instant death attack, and that will fail, so I think I prefer the drill against this monster. Cyan's dispatch also ignores defense, so that's a good choice. And Sabin's suplex, it doesn't ignore defense, but it does get a big bonus when there's only one enemy on screen, so that's also a good choice. This thing has a whopping 32,000 hit points, and for reference, Atma weapon, the boss of the floating continent, only has 24,000, so this thing is significantly bigger. Intangir is one of those enemies that can be defeated by reducing its magic points to 0, but this thing has 16,000 magic points, so reducing that to 0 would take all day. The good news is, if you keep using stop on this guy while the other 3 characters beat it down, the Intangir won't have very many opportunities to do anything against our party, and we will be able to defeat it uncontested. Whenever this thing does actually get its turn though, we need to be ready because it can do a Meteo attack that hits the entire party for big damage, big enough to potentially kill members of our party, so we are going to need to do some recovery whenever that happens. Oh, and there it is. There's the Meteo, right on schedule. So yeah, 2 of our characters died and 1 is in critical condition. We want to keep stopping the Intangir, and then we can start using life magic or Phoenix Downs to bring back our dead characters. Luckily for us, that didn't hit Terra, or our entire party may have been annihilated. For now, we have a chance to recover. We certainly cannot afford to take another meteor while we're in recovery mode, so we want to make sure to keep casting stop on this guy once we get everything in order. A few cure spells should bring the party back where we need to be, and then we can resume the beatdown. Cyan and Edgar are our 2 best attackers because they ignore defense, so we'll let Sabin do the curing for now. He also has some pretty good magic power because we've been giving him the Zone Sync Esper, so his cure spells would be better than others. I think we're actually pretty close to beating this guy, so just a few more hits should do it. Make sure to keep this thing stopped. We can't afford to have another full party Meteo. And that was the death attack, so sadly Edgar won't get the 10 magic points, but the other 3 members of our party will. If you really want to learn magic fast, using Doom on the Intangir to get 10 magic points each time is not a bad option. Let's talk about the sketch glitch. We need to turn the leader of our party into an imp. We also need to have Relm in the party, And we're looking for a formation of monsters like this one, where there are 3 monsters in a triangular formation. Make sure that Relm is not the party leader, and we're going to cast Vanish on one of the enemies. Once the enemy has been vanished, we're going to have Relm sketch it. If you're playing on version 1.0 of the game, some weird stuff will start happening when Relm sketches a vanished character. Is that General Leo in our lineup? You'll notice that we suddenly have a lot of items that we didn't have before, and some of them in extreme quantities. This is kind of awesome. Most of the items that this glitch adds are dirks, but we added economizers, which is a relic that makes every spell you cast only cost 1 magic point. That's something that you wouldn't find until much later in the game. And we also got a whole bunch of Excalibur swords, so that's pretty sweet. We may have mostly gotten dirks, but we actually got thousands of them, so we'll be able to sell those for a decent profit. Once you're done messing around in here, you want to run away. There's a number of things you can do with the sketch glitch, but this is the easiest one. By using Imp on the leader of your party and sketching an invisible enemy, you'll be able to add a ton of items to your inventory, and we can take most of those items and sell them for a ton of cash. Now, first things first, whenever we use the Optimum command to equip our characters, we'll see that we got a lot of new gear that we can use. Also, the next thing that we want to do is save the game, but we want to save in a different slot just to be safe. Things can get a little bit glitchy after using this technique. You'll also notice when you get into the airship that the camera isn't following us properly anymore. Yeah, that's kind of weird. You can actually walk off the screen. That makes it kind of hard to navigate, but we can fix this by simply resetting the game and reloading the save that we just made. This trick only works in version 1.0 of the game, and you will know that you are playing on version 1.0 if the trick works. We're going to go into the airship and you'll see that the camera is following us normally now, and it's time to sell some of those items that we got from the sketch glitch to make a major profit. There's a store right here on the ship, so we'll talk to this guy, and whenever you see that you have none of a certain item, you want to sell one of them. So you can sell a lot of these things, but you see the hairband is a 0 right below this one. You want to sell one of that item first, and then you'll be able to sell a whole bunch of them. This is very common with the packs of dirks that you'll find. So we'll sell a bunch of dirks. Here's a 0-1. Sell the first one, and then you'll see that we have over 200 more dirks that we can sell. If you try to adjust the quantities when there's 0 dirks that you're trying to sell, you'll only be able to sell one of them, and you won't be able to sell all of the others. Selling all that stuff brought our total up to over 3 million gold pieces. That is quite a haul. Alright, let's head back to the Blackjack because it's about time that we went to the floating continent. Whenever you decide to find the floating continent, the game will ask you to make a party of 3, and then you will be quickly thrust into a battle. So it makes sense to figure out what your best 3 characters are before you go to the floating continent, so that you can make that party and properly equip them. Lock, steal, or capture ability will be useful. Sabin's blitzes are always handy. And we just got Strago, and there are some lores that he can learn on the floating continent, so that's why we're choosing these 3 characters. You can choose other ones. Terra is very good here, as is Celis, but I personally prefer these 3. We'll equip our characters with relics to enhance their magical abilities. We'll give Strago a pair of earrings, and we're going to give Sabin a hero ring, which also stacks with earrings. We also need to adjust our Espers. Many of these characters don't have one equipped, and we will give Locke Phantom so that he can learn Vanish. We'll put Carbuncle on Strago, and Sabin currently has Seraphim, but let's put on Modoin so that he can learn some Tier 2 elemental magic. And with that, it's time to find the floating continent. So make your 3-person party. If you choose 4 characters instead of 3, you'll just be kicked back to the Blackjack. And the reason we're taking 3 characters instead of 4 is because we're going to meet up with Shadow later. We can't just get to the floating continent because it's guarded by the Imperial Air Force, the IAF. I was under the impression that Setzer was the only one that had an aircraft, but I guess that someone called the Wandering Gambler might exaggerate a little bit. We will have to fight 6 battles here on the deck of the Blackjack, but it will always be some combination of Sky Armors and Spitfires. Of the 2 types that you see here, the Spitfire is the more dangerous one. It has a 1 in 3 chance of using absolute 0 on every turn, and that is a powerful ice attack that hits our entire party. Between battles, you'll have an opportunity to heal the party, and you can also change up your equipment during this time. You won't be able to go back down into the Blackjack so that you can remove equipment from other characters. That's why we made sure to prepare this team beforehand. The Spitfire used absolute 0 right away this time, so that is what we're dealing with here. If you leave a Spitfire alone on the battlefield, it will change tactics and start using a technique called Diffuser, which is a lightning-based attack, and it's not as bad as absolute 0, but it's still pretty mean. It's worth noting that silence or mute effects can stop the Spitfire from using absolute 0 or Diffuser, and if you have Celis in your team, she can use Runic to absorb Diffuser, but not absolute 0. Once again, we won the battle, and it looks like Locke learned some spells, so that's good news. And we should take the opportunity to switch up our Espers if we need to, and heal the party. We have 4 more of these battles left before we have to fight the boss, so buckle up. It's time to face some more air fighters. Let's talk a little bit about the Sky Armors this time. Sky Armors most often use their Tech Laser, which targets a single party member and doesn't deal that much damage. On their second turn, they have a chance of doing an attack that can inflict silence, which is annoying, and if left alone, they may also use that silence attack. Of course, if they don't have a chance to act, they won't do anything. And that's 3 of these battles finished, 3 more to go. Once again, we'll heal up the party between the fights, and then we'll just wait for the next battle. We do want to start making our way towards the back of the airship. That's where we're going to face the boss, but this time we have 2 Sky Armors and a single Spitfire. Both of these enemy types are vulnerable to lightning magic, so Bolt 2 would work really well against these guys, and if you don't have characters that can cast Bolt 2, you may want to consider equipping the Ramuh Esper. You could use its summon ability as a bolt attack. Also, Strago's Aqua Rake has a wind component to it, so that one could be good as well. Sabin's Aura Bolt or Fire Dance don't target these monsters' vulnerabilities, but because we hooked him up with relics that power up his magical attacks, and we have been building him up using the Zone Seek Esper, these free blitzes are still powerful enough to easily defeat these enemies. 2 more of these battles left to go. You can see the boss off in the distance now. That's what that strange pink object is. Just 2 enemies this time. If you're not using this particular party configuration, you'll still want to be using bolt spells if your characters know that type of magic. If you had Edgar in the team, his chainsaw or drill is very good here. The chainsaw is recommended if you have it. Cyan's Sword Tech level 1 also ignores defense, and these enemies do have fairly high defense, so those sort of techniques would be quite good here. We're going to head towards the back of the ship to take the final fight with Spitfires and Sky Armors, and then after that it will be time for the boss. Just 2 of them this time. The Spitfire started with absolute 0 this time. Not a great start for our party, but we should be able to clear out that guy quickly, and then he won't be able to do that anymore. Locke can potentially steal an elixir from a Spitfire. He will likely steal a tincture, and that's what he would steal from Sky Armors, so if you're going to attempt to steal it all, you should do it on a Spitfire. Alright, make sure everyone is fully healed up, because it's time for the boss. The strange pink object flies to the back of the ship, and Ultros emerges. This will be our final battle with the octopus. Now look, I know octopi can leave the water and survive on land for a while, but flying in the sky? That's a little bit far-fetched. Ultros is still vulnerable to fire magic, although he's also vulnerable to poison this time, but not lightning. Once we've suitably roasted this turkey, bringing his hit points down below 12,800, he will summon Chupon, his new friend, who says, Funga. Okay. To win the battle from this point, we only need to defeat Chupon, and he only has 10,000 hit points. Of course, Ultros sort of gets in the way, so we can finish him off first if we just want him out of the picture. And that's it for Ultros. Time to focus on Chupon. Chupon appears to be a strange dragon or some kind of fire demon. In any case, he's resistant to fire attacks but is weak against ice or water. Sort of the opposite of Ultros. Strago's Aqua Rake deals big damage to this guy. Over 4,000. That's close to half of his hit points. It won't be long before our ice-based attacks and Aqua Rake win the day, but once he's been defeated, Chupon will sneeze our entire party away. Now, if you'd like to shortcut this battle, just like the last time we fought Ultros, we can use the Vanish Doom trick. So we will Vanish Ultros, and once he's been vanished, he will be vulnerable to Doom, although he isn't normally. The Doom can't miss when a character is vanished, and this will not only destroy Ultros, but he won't even have a chance to summon Chupon. We just instantly win the battle. But if you think that's it, you're wrong, because it's time to fight another boss, the Air Force. This boss actually has 3 parts to it: the Air Force itself, the laser gun, and the missile bay. Of the 3, you only need to destroy the Air Force to win the battle. Destroying the missile bay is also a good idea, but if you destroy the laser gun, well, then the Air Force will get some new abilities, and that could be undesirable. Locke can steal the Debilitator from the missile bay, which is a new tool for Edgar that we won't be able to buy until later in the game. And oh, we got it! It's a rare item, so you only have a 1 in 8 chance of getting it if you make a successful steal, but we were lucky this time. This boss is weak against lightning and water, and unfortunately with this party configuration, most of our best attacks against this guy will hit all of the parts of the boss, so we're going to incidentally destroy the laser gun if we use Strago's Aqua Rake, but it's still a pretty good idea. If you destroy the laser gun, the boss will release a spec. We need to be very careful around this spec because it permanently runics any magic. Also, the boss starts counting down. Now, the spec can't absorb Sabin's Fire Dance or Strago's Aqua Rake, so we can easily get rid of the spec, and then we can start casting our normal spells again. If you don't have magic techniques that get around the spec, try beating it down with techniques that ignore defense. If the Air Force's count reaches 0, it will fry the party with a powerful lightning attack. But it's unlikely to reach 0, and even if it does, that attack is definitely survivable. Now let's talk about another technique you can use. If you stocked up on Thunder Rods, which you can buy in Thamasa, you can use them as a consumable item to deal big damage to this guy. Just use them as an item, and you should be able to win the fight with 2 or 3 Thunder Rods. It's really that simple. And with that, the Air Force is defeated. This guy can't be vanished, so if you want a fast way of beating him, the Thunder Rods may be your best bet. With the Air Force out of the picture, we'll be on our way to the floating continent. And although it seems like we've been free-falling for quite some time, we land gently right next to a save point. How convenient. Before we save the game, we can walk down here and talk to Shadow. It's not mandatory, but whenever we do, he'll join the party. I guess if you don't want Shadow on the team, you don't have to take him, but bringing him along is highly recommended. You'll also want to take a moment to make sure that you give Shadow proper equipment. We're going to equip him with the Genji glove and the 2 blossoms so that he'll be able to attack twice in combat. We'll also give him an Esper, and we could take a look at his status. The next character to level up is going to be Locke, so we'll keep that in mind for our Esper leveling strategy. And we'll head up here where we can use a tent to restore all of our HP and MP after those air battles, and then we will save the game. There is a place here on the floating continent where you can go back to your airship, and if you were to do that, you would not have to fight all of those air battles whenever you come back. And here we have our first monster encounter of the floating continent, 3 brain pans. If a brain pan uses Smirk on one of your party members, they'll be afflicted with the stop status, and you can see that's what happened to Shadow here. These work like undead, so they can be damaged with healing, and they're also vulnerable to fire or lightning. Whenever there's only one of them left on the battlefield, it has a chance of using a lure called Blowfish, which deals 1000 damage whenever we use it. If we wait here long enough, it will eventually use this Blowfish technique, and as long as Strago is alive and well when it uses it, he will learn that lore at the end of battle. So we saw the Blowfish, we're going to try to revive Shadow, but it's too late. We already won the fight, and you will see that we learned the Blowfish lore. If you have Strago with you, make sure to be on the lookout for those brain pan enemies because Blowfish is a handy lore to have, and it's a fairly easy one to learn. As we heal the party, let's talk a bit about how the monsters work here on the floating continent. Whenever you hit a random encounter, the game pulls from one of 4 different groups, group A, B, C, or D. Once it's chosen a group, you have a certain % chance of seeing whatever monster configurations that group has. This particular encounter, the Behemoth and 2 Misfits, is from Group D, and whenever the game selects Group D, we'll have a 38% chance of getting this particular encounter, and this is the most common one from Group D. The Behemoth is the bigger threat of these 2 monster types, and something you should know about Behemoths is when you're fighting them, do not summon Espers, they will counter with the Meteor attack. That would be bad. Behemoths are weak against ice magic, while Misfits are weak against fire, holy, or healing. So that gives you a number of good options that you can use against those guys. Misfits can use Life Shaver, which drains health from your characters, and can be especially devastating, although it will backfire on the Misfit if you're wearing a Gaia Gear armor. So keep that in mind. The Misfits are one of the more common enemies that we'll encounter here on the floating continent, so wearing Gaia Gears to prevent their Life Shaver effect is not the worst idea. We're going to switch around our Espers, and for an upcoming battle, we want to make sure that someone is equipped with the Shoat Esper. Over here we can find the Murasame, which is a new weapon for Cyan, but it's kind of mediocre because the plus 10 to evade doesn't actually do anything. And over here we encounter Gigantos, and this is the one that we needed Shoat for. If you cast Shoat's special summon magic, it will instantly defeat this guy. So here it is, Shoat's Demon Eye, which inflicts Petrify on enemies, and this guy is vulnerable to it. I imagine that guy might be a little bit dangerous otherwise, but Shoat takes care of him no problem. And for our troubles, we get a new weapon for Shadow, the Hardened, and that's a nice upgrade for him. Sabin also devised a new blitz there, which is his Mantra Blitz, and that's the one that you can do by pressing RLRLXY. The Mantra Blitz can heal our party members equal to Sabin's hit points divided amongst the party, and it can also remove some status ailments. It's not one that I use too often, but it does have its uses. This dragon is weak to lightning and uses a lot of ice type attacks. Unfortunately, it can counter anything by sneezing away one of your party members, and while that won't actually damage the sneezed party member, it does remove them from battle, which is annoying. Strago and Shadow are close to leveling up, so we'll give Shadow the Bismarck Esper, which can pump up his vigor, and we will give Strago the Zone Seek Esper to raise his magic power. Once we've brought the party back to full health or close to it, we're going to climb this stairway, and at the top of this plateau, we will fall through and will be transported down here. It's marked as A on the map. You need to hit this switch to open up a new path, and here we've encountered the Behemoth and the two Misfits again. For this configuration, we're going to use our fire type attacks to take out those Misfits quickly, so we can cast Fire 2 on everything, or we can have Sabin use his Fire Dance. The combination of those two things should be enough to remove the Misfits from the battlefield, and it will deal some damage to the Behemoth, so we can have our other two characters focus on getting rid of it. Strago can use Ice 2, that will deal significant damage to the Behemoth, but will it be enough? No, not quite enough, and he gets hit by Takedown for over 300 damage. Sabin's Aura Bolt, this should do the job here. With over 1200 damage, that finishes the fight, and we get 4 magic points for that one, so if you're working on learning some spells, you can do it quite quickly here on the floating continent. If you're looking at the map, we're down in the lower part and we're heading towards the right, and this time we're facing 2 behemoths. Although we'll see lots of behemoths here, seeing 2 at the same time is one of the most rare monster configurations on the floating continent. It'll only appear 7% of the time when the game selects Group A. Something that works really well against behemoths is the Break spell because they are vulnerable to Petrify. Now you may think you could use Shoat's Demon Eye like we just did against Gigantos, and yeah, that could work. But remember, behemoths counterattack summons with their Meteor spell, and that can be a disaster. They can even counter the summon with the Meteor spell if you kill them with the Petrify. And Shoat's Demon Eye does have a chance to miss those guys, so it's much better to just use regular break magic if you have it. I'd rather not get hit by the Meteor spell if I can avoid it, although whenever the Behemoth is paired with the 2 Misfits, sometimes using Demon Eye there can be very effective because it can clear out all 3 of the monsters, and yeah, you might take a Meteor, but at least you would get rid of all the enemies in a single shot. It really just depends on how conservative you want to be. We have a good number of items to restore our magic, and we can easily heal our party at this point, so it's probably okay to take a few risks here and there. We took a little bit of a beating in that previous battle, but once everyone is all healed up and ready to go, we're going to continue heading to the right. We're looking for another one of those plateaus that we can enter, so follow the path this way. And this time we only have a single behemoth to deal with, so this should be much easier than fighting 2. One break spell is likely going to be enough to do it, and yes, that gets rid of the behemoth quite quickly. We even got 3 magic points for our troubles, not bad. Shadow ate a takedown, putting him at low health, so we will quickly cure him up, and then we'll continue on to the right. So we're looking for this plateau here. It's labeled B on the map, and it's going to take us back over to the left where we want to go into the plateau labeled C. Don't take the one on the right, that doesn't take you anywhere that we need to go. Here's a different enemy, an Apocryphos. We've seen these 2 misfits before, so we know that they're vulnerable to fire, and the fire dance plus maybe another fire spell should be enough to finish them off. The Apocryphos usually just attacks, or it may try to silence one of our party members, but what's interesting about this guy is it can counter with these level-specific lore spells. This time it tried to use level 4 Flare, but Lock wasn't the right level to be damaged by it. Those guys can also counter with level 5 Doom or level 3 Muddle, and although the spell missed Lock, Strago still learned the level 4 Flare lore. We actually already know the level 3 Muddle lore, but if you need to learn any of those level specific lores, the Apocryphos could be a good way to learn them. This is the plateau labeled C on the map, and it's going to carry us over here to the right, where we will touch this switch, and that's going to open up a new path below. There's another switch up here that will open a nearby path, and once we've done that, we'll be able to loop down to the area we opened up below. It looks like this time we've run into a pair of ninjas, and we encountered a ninja much earlier on in this video back in the cave to the sealed gate. These are the same guys, and they are still dangerous. They use elemental edges or schemes against the party, which hit everyone and are quite powerful. Ninjas are weak against lightning or holy attacks, and if you hit them with a standard attack, they may counter by making themselves invisible, so you probably just want to use magic against those guys. We learned a whole bunch of spells at the end of that battle, so we'll switch around our Espers again. This time we'll put Strago on Stray, and we're going to give Shadow Modoen so he can learn some tier 2 elemental magic. We also need to cure the party, you never know what you'll encounter next. And once you're all set, we're going to head over here to the left, and we need to wrap around down at the bottom. Not this way, we need to go down the stairs over to the left. But first, it looks like we've run into 3 wiry dragons, and I think this is the only monster we haven't encountered yet here on the floating continent. These look similar to the wyverns we saw on the Vector continent, and just like those guys, if you leave one of these alone on the battlefield, it may use Cyclonic to reduce our party's hit points down to critical levels. Wiry dragons are vulnerable to confusion, so you can use the Muddle spell on them, Edgar's Noise Blaster, or the Stray Summon, and you can see that the one that was confused here used Cyclonic on his allies. That's very good for us. And then one of them just attacked another to death. With only one of these left, we need to be careful. Let's get rid of this guy as quickly as possible so that he doesn't use Cyclonic on our party. This Bolt 2 should probably be enough to do it, and that's it. We have won the battle. We didn't take a whole lot of damage in that one, but we'll make sure to heal the party anyways because it's better to be safe than sorry. And once everyone is feeling good, we'll double back a little bit and go the correct way. We want to head down here and then to the right. Here we have just one Apocryphos, and it's a preemptive attack, so yeah, this thing doesn't stand much of a chance against us. Level 3 Muddle wasn't the correct level to get Shadow, so you can see how these level specific lures can be very hit or miss. Whenever you're using those lures yourself, you should only be using them if you know that they're going to work. Shadow is very close to leveling up, so we'll switch him over to the Bismarck Esper, which will continue to pump up his vigor. making him more powerful in combat with his physical attacks. And over here, well, we've encountered the dragon again, and this time we have him in a pincer attack. Strago is getting low on magic, so we're going to need to do something about that. These guys are weak against lightning magic, we already know that, but they're also vulnerable to the stop spell, which can really reduce the number of turns they actually get to use against us. Once this guy's been stopped, it will be unlikely to get another turn in combat, especially if we're using lightning-based attacks, and we can also have Sabin use his Aura Bolt Blitz, which hits pretty hard. Now maybe we should use a few items on Strago to get his magic points back up, but if we're being stingy, I can let you know that we are very close to a save point here, so if we can just hold out a little bit longer, then we'll be able to use a tent, refilling everyone's health and magic. You can tap this switch here to open up the plateau labeled D on the map, but if you're going to the save point, you're going to have to press that switch again, so you may want to just skip it for now. Here we have an Apocryphos with 2 Misfits, and I would say that the 2 Misfits are certainly more dangerous, so we'll want to start out with some fire attacks that hit all the monsters, which will quickly get rid of those guys. And once the fire dance goes through, the Apocryphos should be the only one left. Then we can focus on destroying it, although it seems to be already dead. And with that, Shadow gained a level and Locke learned a new spell. Nice. From here, the save point is right and then down, and now that he's leveled up, we can switch Shadow over to an Esper that will help teach him useful magic, and this will take us down into a cave below where we can save our progress. There's no random monsters down here, so feel free to use a tent, get everyone back to full health and full magic points, and I highly recommend saving the game down here. And if we died right now, it would be a huge setback if we didn't save. Back up on the surface, we can head over here to the right where we'll get a beret, and this is a special helmet for Relm that will increase her chances of successfully sketching a monster, but it's otherwise fairly mediocre and probably not something that we're going to get a lot of use out of. Relm can also equip the Mystery Veil, so if you're using Relm for her magic power more than her sketching abilities, you'll probably want to use the Mystery Veil instead. Alright, we'll switch up Strago's Esper so that he can learn some new spells, and then we're going to press this switch one more time, which will open up the path that is labeled D on the map. But before we can go in there, we have to fight another Apocryphos, and once again it's a preemptive attack. Oh, this time it used level 5 Doom, but Shadow's level is not a multiple of 5, so he was totally fine. And that guy is once again defeated. We already knew level 5 Doom, so we didn't learn it, but if Strago didn't already know that one, he would have learned it there. At the bottom of these stairs, we have the opportunity to return to the airship, but if we did, we'd have to walk through the entire floating continent again to get back to this point, and we'd rather not do that, because we are about to face the boss. This is going to be Atma Weapon. Make sure everyone is ready. Atma Weapon is the most complex monster we've faced so far in the game, and this guy has 3 phases. Once we've deleted about half of its hit points, it will move into phase 2, and when it gets down to 25%, it'll move into phase 3. Start the battle by summoning Zone Seek. This will reduce the damage our party takes from magical attacks. If one of your characters knows the slow spell, you'll want to use that as well. Atma Weapon is not vulnerable to very many status ailments, but slow is one that you can use. In phase 1, the boss only can do 3 things. It can cast Flare on one of your party members, it can attack, or it can cast Blaze, which damages the entire party, but for less than 200 damage. It's not very threatening. Phase 2 is where it gets interesting. You'll know that you've advanced to Phase 2 when Atma weapon uses a spell like Quake, Bio, or Meteor. All of those can be pretty bad. Right now it seems like we're still in Phase 1, but I think we're fairly close. Bolt 2 is a good spell to use. It's the strongest of the 3 elemental magics, but Atma weapon isn't weak to any particular element. Atma weapon has higher physical defense than magic defense, so if your melee characters have attacks that ignore defense, you should use those. Otherwise, spells might be better. The boss casting Quake is a signal that we've moved into Phase 2. You'll notice that Sabin is wearing the Gaia Gear armor, which made Quake heal him instead of damaging him. That's really good for our team. Atma weapon followed up by using Flare on Sabin, which was probably the best character it could have used that spell on. Almost anyone else would have probably died. Instead, we now have time for Shadow to cast Cure 2 on the party, and now we're looking a lot better. Quarter is a signal that we've moved into Phase 3, and once again, Sabin's Gaia Gear armor protected him from it. Anyone that can wear a Gaia Gear armor in this fight probably should. And that's it. We've defeated Atma weapon, but that was certainly not the best way for us to do it. Now that we understand how the phases work, a much better strategy we can employ is trying to reduce the boss's magic points to 0. Just like the Flame Eater boss that we fought earlier, if you reduce Atma weapon's MP to 0, it'll die. Just like before, we're going to start with Zone Seek and Slow to protect ourselves, and then we're going to let this boss have it with Osmose and Rasp. Atma weapon has 5,000 magic points, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't, especially considering that the boss will use magic attacks itself, and when it does, it will drain its own magic points. But the real brilliance of this strategy is that if you never reduce Atma weapon's hit points, it won't be able to move into Phase 2. And Phase 2 is where it unlocks its most powerful attacks. Here in Phase 1, the most powerful thing it can do is use Flare, and that only hits one of our party members, and not for enough damage to actually kill them in a single shot. The other things it can do are attack and use the Blaze spell, both of which are fairly weak. Designate one of your characters as a healer, and just keep casting Cure 2 on the entire party over and over again. Whenever Atma hits one of your party members, it will quickly be healed away, and there's just no way that this boss can win by casting Flare against a single character every now and again. The Rasps are dealing between 200 and 350 points of magic damage to the boss each time, so it probably takes about 20 or 25 shots of Rasp to completely kill this guy. Even if this boss wasn't automatically defeated when its MP reaches 0, this might still be a good strategy because if it's not able to cast magic against us, it really can't do very much. Something else to consider is if you brought Locke along with you, you may want to try to steal against Atma weapon, because if you're lucky and get the 1 in 8 rare item, you could earn a ribbon, which would be really nice to have. Even without stealing one here, we'll eventually find enough ribbons for each one of our 4 party members to wear one, but you really can't have too many ribbons. That is one of the best relics in the game. We're getting very close now. I think this strategy overall takes a little bit longer than physically attacking Atma weapon, but this strategy is much safer. As you can see, this boss really has no chance to defeat us. If it could, it would probably damage itself so that it could unlock its better attacks. But it's not that smart. I haven't actually been counting, but I think we're getting pretty close. Here's another Rasp from Shadow, and we'll have Locke keep casting Cure 2 just to keep us all safe. Sabin will get in there with a Rasp. He has some good relics to enhance his magic, so he did over 200 damage. And Strago is working on another one. And let's see how many points he can hit for. 313, that did it. And with that final Rasp, Atma weapon is no more. That's a slightly more outside of the box strategy you can use against this boss, but if you want to defeat Atma weapon quickly, the fastest way is to Vanish it, and you know where we're going with this. Then we'll cast Doom. This boss is immune to most statuses, but Vanish is not one of them, so you can defeat this boss in mere seconds by just casting 2 spells. The first time I played this game as a kid, I had just heard about the Vanish Doom trick when I got to the floating continent, and so I experimented with it on Atma weapon, and while I did win the battle, I did find it a little bit unsatisfying. Once Atma weapon is defeated, Shadow leaves the party, and up ahead, it's Kefka, Gestalt, and the statues. But we are not alone. Either she followed us this entire time, or she was able to jump from the airship to a spot closer to the statues, but Celis is here. Gestalt begins to absorb energy from the statues, remarking that the power gives him goosebumps. When Celis opens her mouth to try to stop him, he charges up a bolt of magic and fires it at her, knocking her nearly off the continent entirely. Then he freezes the rest of our party with other magical stars. We are in big trouble. Gestalt says that Celis and Kefka were given life to serve him, which is extremely interesting. In this entire game, this is the only line that gives us some backstory for Kefka Palazzo. It's not much, but it says a lot. It implies that Kefka, like Celis, was infused with the power of Espers as a child and raised to be a weapon for the Empire. While Celis seems fairly well adjusted, Kefka went the other way, corrupted by power and stewing in hatred. Celis manages to stab Kefka, and she draws blood. While that probably felt really good, it only enrages him. If you're gonna take a shot at Kefka, you gotta make sure to kill him. And it seems that Celis will pay dearly for that mistake. As Kefka stands on his head, mumbling about how much he hates Celis, a woman who had a similar upbringing to his own, he turns and implores the statues to show him their power. He stands between the statues and raises his arms to the sky, commanding them to grant him their power. They flash white hot for a moment, but it doesn't appear to have any effect. At this point, Gestalt finally realizes that Kefka is a loose cannon, and he begs him not to use the statues to destroy the world they're trying to control. Gestalt should have had Kefka executed for what he did at Doma Castle, but instead he pretended to have him jailed so that he could further his own agenda. That was a big mistake. And well, Gestalt, you're about to see that when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Gestalt attempts to cast Fire 3 as Kefka cackles maniacally, but it doesn't work. Kefka is standing within the magical field produced by the statues, and he is protected from anything Gestalt can do. No, he says. Why isn't my magic working? He tries to cast Merton, but once again, it fails. Kefka just bounces around, laughing even louder. The Emperor once answers, but Kefka just kicks him aside. The statues are giving him massive amounts of power, and their field absorbs any magic sent his way. Kefka turns to the statues. You've shown me a sign, he says. It is time to show this old man your true power. I command you, statues. And from the heavens above, a bolt of lightning crashes into the ground. It almost hits them, knocking them over. The statues need a slight recalibration in their aim, but that one was close. Just a bit more to the right, he says, and the next lightning bolt hits. Run, or you'll be well done. And when another lightning bolt strikes the Emperor, this time he doesn't get up. What a worthless excuse of an Emperor. As the scene fades to black, Gestalt barely clings to life. There will be no one to worship us, he says. But Kefka doesn't care. Without a shred of emotion or remorse, he punts Gestalt over the edge of the floating continent, never to be seen again. Celes makes a desperate play to stop Kefka, but she is nearly knocked off the edge of the continent as well. And what is he doing? He's rearranging the statues, disturbing their delicate balance. Much like the Joker, Kefka is the kind of guy that just wants to watch as the world burns. And if we're not careful here, he may actually get to burn it. From seemingly out of nowhere, Shadow's back, and he rescues Celes. Then he starts pushing the statues? Okay, Shadow, I see what you're trying to do. Cross the streams. That might work. Freed from the magical hold, our party suddenly gets up, but we can't get close enough to the statues to do anything about them. Only Kefka and Shadow can do anything now. As the sky grows alarmingly dark, we are suddenly transported to the right side of the island. We gotta get out of here. We only have 6 minutes to escape, so make sure that you equip Celes and make sure that somebody has the sprint shoes on. You can still make it without the sprint shoes, but they'll make things a little bit easier. Just because you're in the menus doesn't make the time stop ticking down, so whatever you need to do in here, make sure you do it fast. As we work our way to the far right corner, the ground will crack and occasionally we will have to fight some battles, but they're all going to be against this enemy, the Naughty. These creatures are weak against fire, lightning, and holy magics, and they like to start out the battle by freezing one of your party members, which is more annoying than anything. The best way to deal with these monsters is to use the Imp spell on them. If you do, they will immediately counter by removing the Imp status, but then they run away. Nice. When we reach this spot, part of the ground breaks away. We've got to move on. And here we have another Naughty. Using Imp pretty much guarantees a one-shot kill against this enemy, but you could use some other strategies that are almost as good. Being weak against fire and lightning means that only a few shots should be able to destroy them, and Sabin's Aura Bolt is holy based, which is almost powerful enough to defeat a Naughty on its own. We will hurry up this way and we've run into another attack. We're almost down to 4 minutes. We'll use Bolt this time and Fire 2. Sabin can use his Fire Dance or Aura Bolt blitzes. And here is Fire 2. And it looks like this enemy decided to mute Strago at the end of the battle as a death attack. You know that mute doesn't persist after the battle ends, right? I guess it was just her way to try to stick it to us. Well, it's naughty time again, and we got Celis first here, so we're definitely casting Imp on this one. And that will be the end of that. With a quick casting of Imp, the naughty will restore itself, but then I guess that she's embarrassed or something and has to run away. Head to the right and down these stairs. The ground will crack, but it's still safe. And another naughty with about 3.5 minutes left. Time to break out the Imp magic. And there it is, quickly clearing this encounter. Now you'll notice that there's a treasure we can pick up here, but you don't just want to run over to the right because the ground will crack and you won't be able to get it. Instead, you want to go down and around, then back to the left. That'll allow you to get this elixir. This star is sort of like a boss, Narapa. Narapa says you can't run, and we wouldn't need to run anyways because this guy is pretty easy to defeat. Narapa starts out by using Condemned on each one of our party members, which is a lore spell that Strago already knows, but you could learn it here if you didn't know it already. And we were already on the clock, so adding a second clock is really not so threatening. This guy absorbs a lot of elemental attacks, including fire, but he is weak against holy, ice, and lightning. But for now, we want to wait until he uses his roulette magic, which is another lore that Strago can learn. To get this guy to use roulette, we need to attack him 6 times with normal physical attacks, and there it is. Roulette will kill one of us, and it looks like it's chosen Strago, but he wasn't fast enough to kill him anyways. And at the end of the battle, Strago learned the roulette spell. Awesome. Alright, we made it to the airship with almost 2 minutes left to spare. As long as you have at least 5 seconds left when you get here, you should wait for Shadow. Shadow will show up when the clock ticks down to 5, and then you'll both jump onto the airship. If you do not wait for Shadow here, he will die permanently, and you will not be able to get him back. So unless you want to see how that all plays out, it is highly recommended that you wait for him to come back. Well, that's great. It starts with an earthquake, birds and snakes and aeroplanes, but our party is not afraid. It's the end of the world as we know it. From our airship, we see children screaming and imps falling out of the sky. Setzer tells us to hang on, but hang on to what? Suddenly the airship is torn in 2 pieces, and everyone falls. Explosions erupt all over the surface of the planet. You know, a lot of villains want to destroy the world, but very few of them get to actually do it. That puts Kefka on par with someone like Thanos. As the earth cries out in pain, the scene fades to black. On that day, the world was changed forever. But that's all the time we have for this episode. Make sure to join us next time when we will explore the world of Ruin and we'll see who survived in the aftermath. But until then, thanks for watching.